Well, good late morning. What I like to do with these presentations is I like to get an idea of who's in the room, how many deals you've done, how long you've been in the investing space. And so let's cover that first. Who has done one to, let's say, I'm gonna say 0 to 5. Either you've done fix and flips, you've done buy and holds, you've done wholesale deals. 0 to 5, raise your hand. Okay. How about 5 to 10? You've done 5 to 10, 5 to 10, 10 plus? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you guys. I want to thank Titan Title for having me here today. This is a pretty special presentation that we don't do in person very often because we like to keep it close to our vest. But for us, this is exactly how we built our wealth. And so our wealth consists of, we have a hard money company, we fix and flipped over 400 houses, we have a very large residential rental portfolio, and we also have branched into some commercial assets. And so if it wasn't for the distressed asset space, I probably wouldn't be here today. So what you guys are going to do is, a lot of you, especially a lot of you newer investors, you guys are going to be drinking out of a fire hydrant or a fire hose. You're gonna pick up some things. It's kind of what we want, pick up some things, but you're not gonna understand everything that I'm gonna cover. So feel free to ask questions, and especially in my presentations, this is for you guys. It's not for me. I've done this over and over and over again, but it's for you guys. So remember, this is pretty much for you guys. So what we've done is we've created a roadmap to wealth in real estate investing. You'll see the book. We wrote a book on it that came out in December. And so what we've done, and this is basically summarizes our real estate investing careers, because we're basically at the end of our roadmap. We're at the passive income stage. And so what we've done is we've created an education series that assumes you have no real estate investing knowledge, you have no money, and what we do is we take you across the roadmap and we teach you how to eventually get to a passive income stage where that actually is more than your active income, so then you're financially free from an income standpoint. But this takes a bunch of years to do it. It took us about 10 years to do it, but really where we are on the roadmap is we're right here finding distressed assets. So this is only one linchpin on the entire roadmap. So first we start off with the education, right? Fundamentals of real estate investing. We start out with financial literacy of real estate investing, because in order for you to invest in real estate, you've got to have a financial literacy with the various terms. What's ARV of LTV? What's a cap rate, right? What are certain things that we're looking for? And so we cover the numbers in the financial literacy course. Then what we do is we teach people how to find distressed assets today. We teach you how to find the money to buy the distressed assets. You know, unless you're going to fix and flip, if you're going to wholesale, then obviously you don't need the money. But most folks here might want to fix and flip, because as wholesalers, what you're doing is you're wholesaling to usually a fix and flipper, and you got to make sure that they have their profit margin intact. And so you're going to make a wholesale contract assignment fee. So what I'm going to try and teach you to do today, instead of wholesaling, just be a fix and flipper yourself. Because the money, believe it or not, these days is easy. So the next question I want to ask you guys, well, I kind of gave away the answer, is what's harder, finding the assets or finding the money? If you think finding the money is the hardest roadblock that you have, raise your hand. Okay, I gave it away. No, finding the assets is the roadblock. The money is easy. Because of the hard money lender like ourselves, we've brought into a new class of lending, and so it makes it easier for you guys who are wholesalers to get in the fix and flip space, because you don't have to find a cash buyer to assign your contract. So the next thing that we're doing is we're going to teach you how to fix and flip, we're going to teach you how to wholesale. And so what that does is that builds your capital stack. So each deal that you make money on, whether it's a contract assignment on the wholesale side, whether it's a fix and flip, we then teach you how to take your capital stack that you just made and invest it in residual income kinds of streams. And so those streams are, maybe you want to be a tax lien certificate investor. As a matter of fact, we're at the DC tax lien certificate auction as we speak. We'll probably make a $2 or $3 million purchase at the DC tax lien auction today. Ed's there. You don't see Ed, but Ed's there bidding for us. He's been there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's one, tax lien certificate investing. DC pays 18% return. How would you like to get that? Baltimore pays 21% return. How would you like to get that? So tax lien certificate investing is a passive income stream. How to become a hard money lender is another vehicle that's a passive income stream, like us. How to build a rental residential portfolio. How to build commercial assets. We own a few commercial assets that are just cash flowing nicely. And then last but not least, we show you how to, if you don't want to be a hard money lender, we'll show you how to invest in pooled mortgage funds. We have a pooled mortgage fund. We have two funds. The Lightning Fund, two $30 million funds. So we have $60 million of funds. People get anywhere from 7.5% to 9% return on their money. And then we'll show you how to invest in either syndications or real estate investment trusts. So that brings you to the end of our roadmap. And so that's what we've created. And so what this roadmap has done is, like I said, this is a summation of our real estate investing careers. However, it doesn't start with how to find distressed assets. It starts there. This is where the rubber meets the road. Okay? This is who I am. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I have a lot of investor-friendly advice out there. This is basically my resume. It's very detailed on the real estate side. I don't cover my AAU basketball coaching career, my high school basketball coaching career. I don't cover my technology career. This is just all of my real estate endeavors. And so if you guys are going to get one thing out of me today, what I want to give you today is that if you guys hit a point in your life where you are financially successful, what I want you to do is give back. And so I give back in two ways. And this is really, really important to me, and this is why I don't really care about the rest of this stuff in my resume. We've done a lot. What I really care about is I care about my charities that I run. Clear Sky Sports Angels, that charity is being created this year. I've been doing that for the last 5 years on my own. I give money to disadvantaged kids to participate in travel sports, whether it's travel soccer, AAU basketball. I sponsor a BMX bike club. So these disadvantaged youth, I want them to be able to participate in travel sports so that they equal the playing field with other kids. And I'm also part of Catholics for Housing, which you guys would know it as CFH. We're in the low-income affordable housing space. I own a trailer park. Through that charity, we own so many different affordable dwelling units. We own other non-income, lower-income assets. So that's what that charity does. It provides low-income housing for Northern Virginia. So I'm pretty proud of that. So if you don't take anything out of this talk, please give back if you hit a point in your lives where you're financially stable. Okay, the Clear Sky Group, who are we? This is basically who we are. We've got 5 different models in the real estate investing space. I've got Clear Sky Properties, it's right there on that one. We still fix and flip about 1 to 2 houses a month. And so when I go through some of these scenarios and details, everything is in the MLS, everything you can look up. It's all there, it's all in the public record. We have about a 50 property residential portfolio that we manage ourselves. Everything we do, guys, is self-managed. I have a Heather manages all of our properties. We also have an industrial parking lot where we park semi-tractor trailers. It's on an app called NetPark. My rentals are on PropertyWare, so we run everything online. All of our tenants pay their rents online. Being an engineer, Sam being in the MBA world, we're very process-oriented. Everything that we do is systems, including this presentation today. We've got this down to a system. Then we have Clear Sky Financial, which is that guy and that in the back. We're a hard money lender, so we're an asset-based lender. We do things that banks can't do, right? I lend on the asset itself. I could care less about your income. I could care less about your credit. If you're a buy and hold investor, I care about your credit because I need to make sure you can get refinanced out. So we're an asset-based lender. We've got about 40 million on the street. I think we're a little higher than 40 million. We're probably at 42 and a half, somewhere in there. We have 2 funds, a 506B and a 506C fund. That's the Lightning Fund that we take pooled investor money that we give out residual or passive income to the investors. We're not licensed, but we're in DC, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida. I've got a deal that I might be in Pennsylvania. I've got a basketball tournament in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Lawyer friend called me up and said, my mom's buying a brand new construction house in North Carolina. She has to sell her house in Pennsylvania. She hasn't sold it yet, but she needs a $500,000 loan to buy a house in North Carolina. So we'll do a cross-collateralized loan, so that might show Pennsylvania. The next business line that we're in, tax lien certificate investing. We have that. Matter of fact, Ed's at the auction right now. We have Clear Sky Auto LLC, so we own an auto body shop and a tire shop. We just own the real estate. So we're in the commercial space as well. So we know what we're doing in the commercial space. And then last but not least, we have Clear Sky Education. We launched that about a month ago. Wilfredo, Justin, these guys are students, current students right now. And we just have been doing that for about a month, month and a half. We wrote the Pathway book. We've got some copies for you guys to give away today. Dave, I think you have a copy. A couple of you guys in the room might already have copies. But if you want a hardback, feel free to grab anything you want there. And that's basically who we are. And so at the end of the story, at the end of the day, you're getting tutored by somebody who's actually done this stuff. Okay, how to find distressed assets, right? A lot of times, see, me being a basketball coach and a travel soccer coach for all these years, what I do for the team is whenever we play an opponent, a lot of times, especially in high school, especially with my college showcase team, we actually, believe it or not, review film and we scout the other team. And so what I've always done with the kids is that it's always the keys to the win, right? And so in this particular realm for how to find distressed assets, it's about keys to success, right? Because this is not easy. If this was a get-rich-quick business, everybody would be doing it. And the problem with how to find distressed assets is that TV has glamorized this business, right? HD TV, all that stuff. Don't believe anything you see. It's made for TV, right? Sometimes the kitchens, they overdo the renovation budget. They might be in an entry-level neighborhood, and they might be doing this beautiful kitchen that doesn't belong. So those TV shows glamorize our business. Here's what you got to do to succeed. The number one thing is perseverance. You got to persevere. Sam knows that back in the day when I was going through distressed assets, I would literally have to look at 100 different deals, right guys, before I had one or two. I would get no 98 times. So you got to persevere. A good book for you guys to read, other than of course our book, is Relentless, the Tim Grover book, Relentless, because at anything you do in life, especially you, Duval, anything that you do in life, you've got to be relentless about it. There's no shortcuts, right? And so I quoted, last night I had a practice with the kids, our last practice, and one of the quotes that I give them a quote every practice. There is no elevator to success. You must take the stairs. And that's what this business is. Create good habits. Everything you do in life, guys, create good habits, right? Create your niche market, right? What does that mean? I mean neighborhood. I mean property type. Are you going to fix and flip 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhouses that are 2 levels? Are you going to be in DC and Petworth 1910s because you're a good full gut renovator? So create your niche market. For us right now, our marketplace is anything that's entry level. What do I mean by that? Entry level means that my end user buyer needs to be an entry level housing space. So if I'm in Prince William County where we are today, it's the $450,000 market or below, $500,000 or below. Fairfax might be $600,000, $650,000. PG County is probably $350,000 to $400,000 and below. You want to stay in that entry level marketplace right now because the $1 million properties, you might think things are going good in Northern Virginia. You got DC, you got PG County. Trust me, we took back a property on Allison Street as a hard money lender. Our investor, who had done 7 deals with us, tried to sell this property at $1.3 million. He stopped paying us because he was like, guys, I'm not going to make any money. Here's the house. We sold it for $895,000. It's life. It's the way it goes. We're big boys. We can handle it. He lost a lot of money. We lost a little bit of money. But out of 600-700 loans that I've ever done, I've lost money on 2 of them. That's the way it goes. Stay away from the lemmings. What I mean by that, guys, look around you. Everybody in this room is your competitor. So you have your own fishing net. You got to create your own data. Now, I'm not going to cover that in this course on how we create data and market to our own data. I'm not covering that. I'm just covering the distressed assets. So every one of you guys are competitors. So you got to create your own data silos. You got to create your own distressed assets that you need to go after. Is that right?
That's right.
Yep. It's a numbers game. Know your numbers. When I'm talking about know your numbers, what are the numbers? Number one number is after repair value. We got to know if it's a good deal or not, right? We got to know our renovation. We got to know our renovation budget. I don't care if you're a fix and flipper or if you're a wholesaler, those two numbers are the key. After repair value, renovation numbers, okay? I can't tell you how many emails I get from either Four Brothers, Market Pro Homes, Express Home Buyers, who 10%, 20% higher the ARV than what it's really worth. The renovation budgets are too skinny, so when you actually compute the numbers are wrong. The numbers are off. It doesn't make any sense for you as a fix and flipper to buy the deal. But they have a list of 5,000, they have mailing lists of 5,000, 7,500 investors. Of course they're going to get their house sold, but that end user investor who's bidding against you, they're going to probably end up breaking even or losing money. Been there, done that. That's not fun. Okay? Know your buy and sell closing costs if you're a rehabber. You got to know those numbers. You got to know your holding costs, right? So in the game of numbers, the two variable costs that you got to control, number one is renovation. You got to make sure you have a contractor that's on time, in budget. End of story. If they're going to keep throwing change orders at you for whatever reason, sometimes I get it. If you're doing a full gut renovation, that's a little bit more risky. Have a 20% contingency budget in there. The other costs that will hurt you as a fix and flipper are the holding costs, right? If you're in Northern Virginia and you're doing a fix and flip in Northern Virginia and you're supposed to be out in 120 days and it's taken you 9 months and you're using a hard money lender of last resort who's charging you 12% interest only in 3 points, each month that ticks by, let's say it's a $400,000 loan, that's $4,000 a month. So it's very, very important that you understand and calculate your holding costs going in. So one of our rules of thumb is in Northern Virginia, we'll say, right now the market's hot. So we'll say compute 4 or 5 months of holding costs. In Washington, D.C., if it's a full gut renovation, 12 months. If it's a PG County where maybe the renovation's not so substantial, it's a six month holding cost. So make sure that you guys are calculating your holding costs correctly. What is a holding cost? I'm sorry I didn't even explain that. Holding cost is your property taxes on the property during the fix and flip. It's your insurance, it's your HOA or condo fees, and it's your holding costs on a loan associated with it, right? Because in this business, if you're going to do a fix and flip and you're getting a good deal, you want to use a highly leveraged lender to do the deal. If you're a cash investor, that's fine. The problem though is your rate of return on a cash on cash rate of return is going to go substantially down if you don't use a hard money guy, if you don't use a community bank. It just depends on what you want to do. And the last thing that you need to do is ABM, always be marketing. Okay, I can't tell you about us. Look at me, right? I'm a good rule of thumb of that. Just look around the room. What do you guys see? But we're marketing the hell out of this event. Got a book, got a that, got that, right? Titan Title's got their stuff out there. So that's what we're doing. I'm always marketing. Not sure why. I got new students, I guess. I don't know. Why am I marketing? We don't need to do this. My hard money business is word of mouth. That's how we grew to 45 million bucks. I never had to go on social media, Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff. I never had to go on LinkedIn and get a client. Man, they all came to us because they like dealing with us. We're easy to deal with. Okay, liquidity. What is it, guys? And why am I presenting this chart? This is probably the most important chart of the presentation, believe it or not. As an investor, we're in the distressed asset space. I can't tell you how many deals that I've closed in 2 or 3 days. From the time that I got the deal, whether it's a pre-foreclosure, and I've got an example in here of a deal that we've closed in 2 days. Why? Because we're liquid. Here's our liquidity. So what liquidity is, and you guys all have got to compute your liquidity maybe once a month, once a quarter, once or twice a year. What is liquidity? Liquidity is the measure of cash that a person has on hand to invest and meet immediate or short-term obligations. Okay? How quickly can you get your hands on cash? Simple. Get your money whenever you need it. When I purchased my first investment property, it really wasn't an investment property, but it was because of the way I bought it. I was divorced. I left my house with my wife. I had 2 kids. Believe it or not, I was very humbled. I moved in with mom and pop apartments. Okay, I was 30, I don't even remember what I was, 32, 33. But what I did at the time is I read a ton of books on real estate investing. I knew what I was doing. I didn't have anything to show for it. I had a good technology job. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I'm a data guy, data warehousing guy, consultant. I'm making a lot of money. But here, I didn't have much cash, going through a divorce with 2 kids. What I had though, I had $300,000 in gold card availability. I knew the pre-foreclosure space. I knew how to identify them. I knew how to figure out what had equity, what didn't have equity. So I'm going around, knocking on doors. Finally, one guy on Madrigal Drive, 14390 Madrigal Drive, answers the door. He goes, I say, hey, sir, how are you? Your house is going to foreclosure in 2 weeks. Obviously, the door's here, right? And so I'm standing in a 45-degree angle, because if you stand straight onto the door, or let's say that's the door, and I'm standing straight onto the door, it looks very confrontational. So I'm standing at a 45-degree angle. Hey, sir, how are you? Your house is going to foreclosure in 2 weeks. I said, I'm an all-cash buyer. I didn't have a dime to my name. Might have had $5,000 in the bank. Who knows what I had? I said to him, I would like to buy your house all cash. I could close in a week, right? So what do you think he said? No, he said yes. He said yes. I had no idea what the heck I was doing at that point. I was like, okay. So then what I did, I sat there and I talked to him for a little bit longer. I figured out what he did. I'm a school teacher. You know, I don't like this area. It was April at the time frame. He was going to go back home to either India or Ohio to be with his parents. He was a young guy, maybe 26 years old, but he had bought that townhouse from the builder. So that at the time, the townhouse was only 3 or 4 years old. It was worth about $200,000 at the time. And so he said to me, yes. So I kept talking to him. Tell me he's a teacher. I said, sir, I will be back tomorrow. I will have a contract tomorrow. Because I was so dumb, I didn't even bring a contract with me. As a matter of fact, I knew what I was doing, sort of, but I didn't even have a contract to bring. So then what do? I'm all excited, nervous, don't know what the heck I'm doing. I go to Staples. I go in the legal section. I pick up one of these little 3-page real estate contracts, right? I got my buddy Dan Berinsky. Don't worry about it, guys. He was Esquire Settlements, no longer in business, just a Titan title thing, right? And so Dan Berinsky, I said, Dan, I've got this pre-foreclosure. And at the time, I didn't know any of the encumbrances. I only knew about the first trust. And so I said, Dan, I need a title search. I got to close this thing in a week. I said, because the foreclosure is like in 10 days. Can you do it? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I can do it. I can do the title search. I can do the closing for you really quick. I was like, okay, awesome. So then I put the closing date about a week out. But then what's my next problem? I don't have any money. Oh boy, I have no money. But I did have these, and so what I would do, and this is why the liquidity discussion is really important, is I had a little notebook, right? You know, the little spiral, tiny notebooks you used to keep track of stuff on. I literally had all my gold cards from the different banks. I had all those checkbooks that they would send you. I don't know if you guys remember that. I know I'm dating myself on the gold cards, but I had $300,000 in gold card availability to me. Now, you're saying to yourself, well, they're going to charge you 3 to 5% to write out one of those gold card checks. So then what I had to start doing is I had to start loading my bank account with the gold card checks, because at the time he owed 120. The house was worth 200,000. I made him an offer of 130 because I wanted to get him $10,000 of walking money. So that's what I did. Problem is, I maybe have $5,000 in the bank. So now what do I got to do is I got to execute on my liquidity, and I got to raise up another 125 at 3 to 5% fee plus the 18% interest rate. So that's exactly what I did. Had no money. And I ended up buying a house. So now let's take a look at it now from a balance sheet standpoint. Now I have a house that I bought for 130. Oh, by the way, part of the deal was giving him a free rent back into June until school was over so he could move out. So I'm carrying this house for a couple months on these gold cards, but it really wasn't a couple months. So now let's look at my balance sheet. I have a house that's worth $200,000 fixed up. I owe my gold cards 125, right? Because that's what I pulled out. Even though I bought it for 135, it was my money. The other was off the gold cards. So now I have an equity position of $75,000, roughly, right? So then what I did is, luckily for me, I then applied for a 30-year mortgage because I did have good credit to refinance that house. And so I got a Wells Fargo 30-year mortgage after the fact. Because the way Wells Fargo looked at it was, even though I had $125,000 in credit card debt, they just gave me a rate and term refinance. I paid off all my credit card, pulled out maybe 10 grand in cash. Now I have a mortgage against it for $140,000, of which it's worth $200,000. He moved out, I moved in. That was my so-called house after the divorce, right? But that was my pre-foreclosure house. So guess what that did? So everything that I had learned by reading books, Gold Mining and Foreclosures, Shoestring, Robert Allen books. Guess what? Now the school smarts now turned into street smarts, and I'm ready to go. I'm to the moon. I'm confident as hell. You know, I'm working some technology job, working for the man. Not 100% excited about it, but I really love what I did. I love data warehousing. I love being a data engineer. But now, guys, I have another, you know, I'm a licensed real estate agent at the time too. I always had my license, 91. And so that really was the day where, you know, when you score your first goal or you make your first basket or you do this, when you do some sort of achievement, remember the euphoria you felt when you made that accomplishment? That's exactly how I felt. So that's what sort of was a springboard for this. But liquidity is very, very important. Okay, if you don't do the time, you'll not make a dime. Anonymous investor, that investor is me. Okay, you got to spend time on this, guys. If you're a beginning investor, two things you got to do. Number one, you got to read, get educated. Number two, don't see number one. You got to spend all your time finding distressed assets. I mean all your time. That should be the number one focus. If you don't already have a decent portfolio and you want to wholesale, you want to fix and flip, okay? Should you chase deals or have deals come to you? What I'm going to teach you guys, you're going to learn how to chase deals. Right now we're set up, and then I'm going to show you some ways to have deals come to you, and I'll have something on section 10 on how to do that. A distressed asset, what is it? Well, it's what the definition says it is, right? It's a house where there is major financial difficulty, usually in default or close to default. That's how we got started in the pre-foreclosure space. However, there are other forms of distress in an asset. Financial, we just talked about it. Conditional distress, driving for dollars. Your vacants, your blighteds. I can't tell you how important that is. I'm going to talk about that in the hidden market here in a second. So you got financial, you got conditional, you also have emotional. A lot of anxious people in this world. Be careful. I've had a gun pulled on me one time. That will be the last time it's ever pulled on me. Not because I'm going to do anything about it, but because that wasn't a fun day. So a lot of people are anxious, so be careful. The next thing that happens on a distressed asset is a life event, right? Emotional or life event. Divorce, death, right? All these kinds of life events happen. And so these are part of the distressed asset space. And we're going to cover estate properties as part of this presentation. So as long as you guys understand what it is. And this is what I'm going to cover today. So it's probably going to go close to 3 hours. If you guys need a break or something, just raise your hand. And so the way I want to do this is at the end of each topic, right? So once I cover pre-foreclosures, ask me a lot of questions. If you showed up to the pre-foreclosure webinar that I did, that took 45 minutes. But you're going to see some of the same slides. So you're going to see some of that information. But the rest of it, 2 through 9, totally different for you guys, if you sat on that, okay? So what am I going to cover? I'm going to cover the definition. I'm going to cover how do you find, which is why we're here. And I'm also going to cover deal example strategies as well. Oh, and the other thing that I didn't put in here is I'm also going to cover a deal example. Because one of the things that gets on me is what you got to understand, I still go to investor meetup groups. We're presenting tonight at Grid, Sam is. I still go to Traction. I go to Grid. I go to Omni's Cash Flow Breakfast Club. I show up to these events, right? And I hear other speakers speak. But the one thing that really gets on my craw is that they never give me actual examples. I attend one meetup in Gainesville. I can't tell you who's running it. And he presents the same deals over and over again. But these deals are 15 years old. These deals are 10, 12 years old. I'm like, don't you have any newer deals that you can present us? I want to see what you've done lately. Because believe it or not, the market's changed. Everything has changed. The way you go about finding deals has changed. We've got Privy, we've got Deal Machine, we've got all these tools out there. We've got all these data mining things. We've got all these list source leads. The industry's changed as it's changed. And I'm going to cover some up-to-date ways to find deals as well. All right, so the first asset type, pre-foreclosures, right? What is it, guys? Do you guys know what a pre-foreclosure is? And the reason why I'm doing it in this order, there's a reason. The way it works is that it's going to go pre-foreclosure, foreclosure, REO. REO stands for real estate owned, right? It's either real estate owned or it's bank owned, same kind of thing. And so I'm doing those first three in order for a reason. And so what a pre-foreclosure is, it's a house that's behind on payments. Now, I've got 3 to 9 months in there But because of COVID, we had this thing called a foreclosure moratorium. I'm still seeing properties come to the foreclosure auction block where people haven't paid in three or four years. But that's basically what it is. Okay, and they have a scheduled, I have here a scheduled court date, but it's a scheduled auction date. So the pre-foreclosure period is actually the notice of default, the ad is published, all the way up to the auction date. Because for any house to go to foreclosure, it has to go underneath a public auction to the public, okay? And so they're gonna be listed in the legal section of the newspaper, Public Notices Virginia. Online you can find them, right? And so they're published. The auction date itself, the auction date and time for that 3-minute period is the definition of a foreclosure. And I'll cover this in a little bit more detail when we get to foreclosures. Then what happens is once we're at the courthouse steps, we have auction bidders. I wouldn't suggest doing that right now. It's crazy right now. We've got a lot of Middle Eastern money in this country. These guys are bidding the profit margins out. I wouldn't show up to foreclosure auctions. If you're a wholesaler, I would, to build up your cash buyer list. I would definitely show up because you're not gonna make any profit at the courthouse steps these days. So the profit's turned off. The next thing would happen, so the first thing that would happen is at a foreclosure auction, remember, the bank is foreclosing. So the bank sets the opening bid. It's either gonna be a full debt bid or a specified bid. If it's a full debt bid and the bid is worth more than what the house is worth, then it just simply goes back to the bank. REO, real estate owned. And so I'm gonna cover that a little bit more in detail. Substitute trustee filings are in the courthouse land records. I'm gonna show you guys an example of all this stuff. Go through the ID process to determine what's a good pre-foreclosure candidate, because not all pre-foreclosures are good candidates. You only want to track the ones that have equity. Remember my townhouse example? He owed, all in, he owed $120. I bought it for $130, but the property was worth $200,000. There was a good $70,000, $80,000 in equity in there. That's why I ID'd that property. So I'm going to show you how to ID the process. And then what we do is a lot of times in Northern Virginia, now it's a little bit different in Maryland. Maryland's laws are different. But in Northern Virginia, if it's a pre-foreclosure that I've ID'd, we used to actually physically drop a brochure off to the house, and I've got an example of what that looks like later on in the presentation. So we would physically show up. And I've got an example of how that's worked for us in the past. You purchase a pre-foreclosure directly from the owner. I'll explain to you on the foreclosures why that's important. But basically, when you purchase a pre-foreclosure from an owner, all liens come into play. So let's say the first mortgage or the first trust is foreclosing. Well, let's say they have HOA liens. Let's say they have a second trust or a HELOC. Well, all the liens in the lien chain come in play, and you've got to cure all the liens, as well as hopefully give the owner an incentive to sell to you, which is obviously give them terms of your deal, walking money, or whatever it is, right? We've never gone in and, not paid owner. We've always given owner something. Free rent back for a long time, $10,000, $100,000, whatever makes sense. They've always had walking money from us because they got to be treated right. You got to treat them right. And you got to make a win-win deal, because that's the only reason why they're going to say yes. Like I said, title and all other liens come to play. You must close very fast, sometimes within 2 or 3 days. My best deals have been deals that I've closed in 48 hours or less, because we got to move. Because a lot of times, if somebody's getting foreclosed on, they're in denial, right? And so they don't really realize what in the heck is going on. They're trying to save their house other ways. And so a lot of times, 3, 4 days, 2, 3 days before the auction, they might give you a call and they might say, hey, I'm ready to sell my house. And so you got to, and that's why we cover liquidity. You got to be ready to pounce, okay? We could close a hard money deal 24 hours if the title binder's out there. But if you guys are if you're not liquid enough, closing something in 2 or 3 days might be a little sketchy, so it might be tough. So keep that in mind. So remember, when you're buying a pre-foreclosure, you knocked on the door, the guy said yes. Once you're done freaking out of the yes moment, you got to solve some problems. What's the number one problem you got to solve? Well, obviously you got to come to an agreement on a deal. I get it. That's, believe it or not, you're going to laugh, but a lot of times that's secondary. The house itself isn't the primary, it's the primary reason why you're there, but it's a secondary reason on their minds, because remember, there are other problems going on in their life as to why they're there. So the number one problem that you have to solve is where are they going to go? You got to figure it out. Remember, they probably have bad credit. So you've got to figure out where they're going to go. Problem number one. Remember, their house is loaded. They ain't got no money. They're going to need somebody to help them move. So you might have to either hire a moving crew, you might need to find them a self-storage. You're going to need to do something to help solve problems. So you're going to have to probably move them, maybe pay to move them or pay to buy a self-storage, right? Free rent back. You got to deal with the trash. You got to make this thing, the transition, as easy for them as possible. That's the name of the game, guys. Solving problems. And whatever else they need outside the deal itself, you've got to be able to figure it out. Okay? Find the property, have a crew ready to move their effects. Okay, sometimes if there's a death, right, and the house is loaded, sometimes you might need to hire an auction company or an estate sale company to come in and sell the stuff. Guys, you got to be a jack of all trades. You got to be able to solve whatever problem comes up, because what you're trying to do is when you knock on that door for the first time, or you call them or you email them and they call you back, is you got to establish the trust. If you're not establishing the trust with that home seller, they're not going to deal with you. They're going to the next guy that's contacting them. You got to establish trust. They got to want to deal with you. And so the funny thing about it is I was just telling this to somebody the other day, is that on the pre-foreclosure side, so I'm showing up, house is worth $400,000. Let's say it's a single family house in Dale City, townhouse. It's worth $400,000. We're going to buy it for, let's say, $250, right? And we have an agreement to buy $250. How many times do you think a home seller has ever asked me for what's called a proof of funds? Yeah, 0. They've never asked me to prove to them that I have $250,000 to buy their house all cash. Never. They never have. And so that's why when people call me up for a hard money loan and they say, hey, I need a lender letter, I need this, I need that. Well, the first thing I ask them is, where are you getting the property from? Oh, I'm getting it from Market Pro Homes. I said, don't you realize that 10 or 20 other investors are going to be bidding on that same property and that they're going to bid your profit margin out of it? Oh, it's on the MLS? The only reason I would need a proof of funds is on the MLS, because the MLS, guys, isn't the right way to find these properties these days. You can, short sales maybe. I'll go over that in a minute. But the MLS is not the right way to do it. Okay, we're going to talk about how we get around that. All right, purchase steps. Here's what you do. And I'll show you guys how to identify these guys. Identify number 1. Figure out that has equity in it. You want to attack it. Market directly to the owners before the foreclosure auction date. Well, the other thing that you guys got to keep track of is, let's say this house doesn't sell to you and the auction date gets canceled. What do I do at that point? That's a good lead. Keep that lead, okay? Keep it. Add it to your data spreadsheet. Keep that lead and market to it. Set an appointment, depending upon what your marketing efforts are. If they're there at the time you knock on the door, fine. If they're not there and they call you back or they answer an email, set the appointment. I would answer my phone. So whatever phone number's on there, I'm not a guy that likes to hire VAs, really. I'm gonna answer my phone because I never know when I might need to be somewhere tomorrow, or I never know where I might need to be here somewhere tonight. Okay, so answer your phone, understand the title. Once you set the appointment, it's very, very important that you understand the title, okay? Because in the pre-foreclosure, we're gonna know what foreclosing instruments foreclosing. We're gonna know the loan amount because I've identified the loan amount in the ads, right? I know that there's pretty good equity in the property before I even put it on my identification list. But then though, when you're setting the appointment, you need to make sure you don't leave without a deal. Okay, but you got to know the entire title chain so that you're giving them the right deal. All right, and I'll cover a couple of title searches here in a second. You got to be able to, then once you create a win-win offer based on the title search, you got to ensure that there's a cash component going back to the owner. They got to be incentivized. 10,000, 100,000, 1,000, right? 5,000, whatever the number is, make sure that they have a certain cash component as part of that deal. Don't show up and take advantage of them that much. Make sure there's some cash to incentivize them, and then close the deal. It's usually a week or less on the pre-foreclosures. You're going to have to move fast, okay? And by being liquid, it's going to help you move fast, okay? Now I'm going to show you 2 different types of what it looks like, okay? Type 1, and this is my problem with tools, right? This is my problem with lists, is because tools and lists are not real time. These tools do not have people sitting in the courthouse land records acquiring data. They just don't. They don't have people going through the trustee sale ads of the newspaper every single day, every single minute. They don't have it. They're not set up. Their budgets aren't set up. So their data is a month or two old. I can tell you that right now. Substitute of trustees. This is an example of what happens in the courthouse land records of when somebody is late on a mortgage. Back in the old days, it used to be called an NOD, Notice of Default, right? Not anymore. They file a substitute trustee filing. What that does is in Virginia, or even DC or Maryland, in Virginia, it's a deed of trust state. What that does is it has these default conditions on the deed of trust. What it says is that I can hire a law firm, which is what's called a substitute trustee, to sell this property on my behalf as a lender at a public auction. In order for the law firm to do that, they're filing the substitute of trustee in the land records. That's how you know. And so right here, there's a particular address. I don't know if the address is in here. Yeah, it is. 44745 Maiden Place, Ashburn, Virginia. The foreclosing trust is $250,000 back in 2017. Okay? That tells me that there's a lot of equity in that property. So if we look up 44745 Maiden Place in Ashburn, 20147, my guess that property is worth at least 500 grand. Okay? But that's number one. That's the number one way to identify it. Number two, and the way I like to do it. You guys are going to laugh. Can you guys see this okay? It's all right? And when I'm in new places, it's hard. It's not so bad. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to look at, and I've got a deal example on one of these actually. So I've got 3 different examples. This is what is in what's called the legal notices section, the legal notice trustee sales. Okay. DC, Maryland, Virginia. You got the Washington Post, you got the Washington Times, publicnoticevirginia.com, another good online place for it. And so they're all over the place, right? And so the way you want to identify it, I'm going to start with the one on the right. Here's an address in Bristol, Virginia, 20136. The originating note was back in 2005 and the auction was back in 2016. Now this is some older examples of how to identify, but I want you guys to understand how to identify it. Don't worry about the dates. I know it's a little old. We've been doing this presentation for a minute, but I've got some real life examples coming up of more current deals. And so this particular deed of trust was $575,000, 2005 when it was originated, right? August 31. County of Prince William. This property will be sold to a 120-day right of redemption by the IRS. What is this telling me? It's telling me that I have a first trust that's foreclosing. Do you guys remember what happened in 2005, 2007, 2008? What happened? The real estate market absolutely crashed, right? In this area. This particular house, the 575, was worth more even 8 years later than what it was worth than what the first trust was. But the other thing was that it was sold subject to the 120-day right of redemption by the Internal Revenue Service. That tells me there's an IRS lien on it. So that tells me that this is not a pre-foreclosure candidate. It is not. Okay. Now let's go to the ad here. Similar kind of thing. 2005, which in 2005 the market almost peaked out, 6-7, $485,000. Same kind of thing. Market tanked, right? 2008-9. This one was over encumbered, so the 485 was the first trust, more than what the house was worth. So these two properties would have had to be short saled, and I'll cover that later on. They would have to be short saled to convey the property. These are not good pre-foreclosure candidates on the identification side. You guys got that? Okay, now let's talk about the middle property. And I know you're going to be shocked when I do this in a minute. We actually bought this property, Shock City, right? Okay, but let's look very closely at this particular ad. Execution of a deed of trust, August 25, 2003. So before that, 2005. Oh, I like that. A non-refundable bidder's deposit. Note that it doesn't give a loan amount. Note that, because that's pretty important. If it didn't give the loan amount, you can simply go to your public land records, look up instrument number 2003-08-2990-159-227. You can look that up in the Prince William County Land Records, get the deed of trust, and figure out the amount. You can do that. I don't have to, because this ad was put on by a law firm called Brock & Scott. I know all the substitute trustee law firms. This was Brock and Scott. Look at this though. A non-refundable bidder's deposit of $12,500. That's what you got to bring to the courthouse steps in this particular case to actually bid on a house. But that told me a very valuable piece of information. Because usually what happens is these trustees will usually put 10% of the loan amount in the form of a cashier check when you're at the auction bidding. So so $12,500 is 10% of what? It's 10% of $125,000. Oh, now it's getting better. Now it's getting better. I'm like, oh wow. In this particular case, this property I think was worth $275 or something like that. I'll go into the numbers in a minute. So then I'm like, oh my God, this is a great candidate. I'm going to go by and drop off a brochure to this house because remember, the auction is May the 4th. Now I'm dating myself a little bit, and I do have a current example of a deal that we just bought a year ago. And so May the 4th, I don't remember when this ad came out. It was probably end of April, April 20th, and that's the time frame. So I literally put a brochure on the house. It's going to mean something here in a second. I didn't think nothing of it, went to sleep, because we do this all the time. People don't call you. You take the brochure, they rip it up. In this case, they weren't home. If they're home, and I knock on the door, and I'm going to hand a brochure, if the kids answer the door, I ask for an adult. If the adult isn't there, I leave. I do not give the kids a brochure. I don't want the kids to know anything about the financial distress, even though they might have a feeling. That's just something that we don't do. Dropped off a pre-foreclosure brochure. This is China Grove. This is the middle one, okay? So I dropped it off. Believe it or not, 3 days before the auction, it was a Sunday afternoon, the owner called me up, Sunday around 11 o'clock. My house is going to foreclosure on Wednesday. I need you to come and meet me, and I need you to buy the house. I said, okay, 11 o'clock. I called Sam up. Sam will remember this. I called Sam up. Sam, we have a 2 o'clock appointment on a Sunday. We need to get over there and buy this house. Here's the problem. The problem is that I've got this thing called a title search here. Well, guess what? At the time, I have a good title company. Sorry, Titan Title. So I have a pretty good title company who can pull a title for me in a day. I could do it myself because it's Prince William County Land Records. And so at the time, I didn't have an online subscription to it. So I call up Sam. Sam, we got to get over there. I have no idea what the title looks like. I'm pretty sure that the foreclosing instrument was a first trust. So then what we did is, remember, the homeowner called me up. So we already had some sort of trust. You saw the brochure. In the brochure, I put it's a nice trifold. Right? We're realtors at the time. We were going to either get the listing or give them a loan to bring the current or buy the house. So we had 3 different options. It was actually a really good brochure. And so one of the things we had to do is when we met for the appointment, we had to actually hope that the homeowner knew their title on their house. Okay, it was a first trust. Oh, by the way, they had a HELOC on it, and they told us the balance of that. And oh, by the way, there was some HOA stuff. Bless you, bless you. And oh, by the way, there was some HOA stuff. I didn't know it at the time, but because they gave us all this information, at least that gave me a good idea of what to make an offer for. And so that day, we made an offer for $200,000. They accepted it. We literally closed 2 days later. And then we flipped it for $285,000 with $5,500 back. And so we sold it for about $280,000. Okay? So the renovation was about 40 grand, so I think we made 30 grand or something like that. Okay? Now, here's something for you to look at. What is this? You guys know what this is? Same property. It's a title search, right? So this is actually the title search that I did that Monday morning at the courthouse land records because at the time I didn't have an online access. All right, so you see where the deed is, right? 2001, they bought it for $160,000. You guys see that? Then you have a trust. You guys can see that, right? Yeah. It's not, okay, like I said. All right, there you go. Oh, it looks good. Okay, so you got the trust. So when they bought the house, $160,000, I'm sorry, they bought it for $163,18. They got a first trust of $160,300. You guys see that? Now, what you want to see here is this thing called a SAT. That is called a deed of satisfaction. that means that loan was paid off. So we can actually scratch through this. Then what they did in 2003, do you guys remember BF Saul? You got any old heads in here? There you old head, I hear you. BF Saul. BF Saul was a big time subprime mortgage lender, and they were local to our area. I think Chevy Chase ended up buying them out, something like that. But BF Saul. So they got originated another trust, 162,510. They had a credit line deed of trust of $49,000 with Chevy Chase. But then they also had a couple of HOA liens that are in there that were on title. So we knew going in, and luckily for us, I mean, we offered him $200,000. So I had enough money in there to clean up all the liens. And so obviously what happened was, BF Saul got bought out by Capital One. So what happened was, this is called a deed of assignment. So this loan here at 162 actually went to Capital One. But what this isn't telling you though, guys, is that even though the loan was originated for 162,500, the payoff amount was only about $130,000. Okay, so it was 130. I think she owed about, I don't know, $40,000 in that second credit line deed of trust. She was all encumbered for 170 plus the HOA liens. So she had about $25,000 in walking money off of our $200,000. And so then we bought it for $200,000. Okay.
In this, Charlie, in this example, does the 200, is that like cash to the owner? Or does that 200, is that after cleaning clear title, so therefore like wiping out the HOA lien?
You got it, yeah. So the $200,000 was what we paid for it. Right? But then the owner walked with about $30,000 because the $200,000 went to clear up about $125,000, which was the first trust balance. Because remember, that first trust was in arrearages. So they only owed maybe 110, right? But they had to pay, they had to bring it current, the arrearages, they had to pay the law firm, so it was about 125. And then this 49 was about 140. So now we're in a one, and then these guys, the lien payoffs were maybe $2,000 or something like that, or $3,000. So the $200,000 goes to the owner. They cleared about 25 or 30,000, and then we gave them free rent back, right? Because she had a son graduating from high school, getting ready to go to college. So we gave him free rent back for 3 or 4 months. And then if I remember right, we actually got her a storage unit too to move her stuff into. Yeah. Okay, I'm almost done with this, I think. Oh, no, I'm not. All right.
Charlie, you go back. So when you said that she owned 110 or 120, whatever she owed, how did you determine that after you made the offer, or did you know that going in?
Well, she showed us. Remember I'm in this case, which I don't like to do this in all cases. I would rather have the title search before I meet with somebody. In this case, we literally sat down at the kitchen table like we always do. I call the kitchen table the actual war zone because that's where all these deals are being made, is the kitchen table or the dining room table. And so she actually brought us out statements. She brought out the statement on the first arrear. You know, it's late. It's 9 months late. She brought out the credit line deed of trust statement. The liens were a little bit of a surprise to us, but we know going in that if you're late on your first mortgage and you're in an HOA or a condo, odds are you're not paying that either. So we kind of know the title's a little, and this was Wellington HOA. You guys know where Wellington is over Manassas? That's right. But in this case, this is a HOA lien. And in this case, this guy had 2 different HOAs, as you guys are going to see here in a second. And so this is what it looks like, just so you guys can see it. I'm always excited about these guys when I see them in the newspapers because once you uncover the title search, a lot of times, sometimes these guys might not have loans, right? You got to understand what the encumbrances are. It's very important because these are going to be smaller liens. And I'll show you the lien amounts here in a second. That's the address. I've got it X'd out. But guys, it's 12314 Fox Lake Court. And again, you made the comment earlier about these seminars or webinars and how you have a hard time getting value out of it. We're actually, and you know this too, we're going to put our deals in here. We're 100% disclosure. It's all public land records, so you guys can look and see how we did. Here's the description of the property: 321, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse, end unit. It was a hoarder home. They had 2 HOAs, but look at this, delinquent for 10 plus years on both. It took that long for the HOA to file the liens, to file the judgment, to actually get it to a foreclosure scenario. That's how long it takes sometimes. Okay. Owner cannot afford to bring it current. You guys are probably, huh? That makes sense. Full renovation needed, including a roof. I think we spent about $100,000 on it. The ARV is 675. These numbers are really, really important. I think we sold it for 715, but I don't remember. But these numbers are important because I'm going to show you something. All right, now, here's another example of a title search. The guy that brought me the lead. Do I got on the next chart? Yes, I do. Okay, that's the deal line. Okay. The guy that actually brought me the lead was a wholesaler. He happened to, and this is how sometimes luck has it. Remember, guys, you got to cash your net. You always got to be marketing. The guy was a wholesaler. He actually was living in the basement of this property.
What?
Yep. And I'll explain to you later on in the presentation how to find these deals, have them come to you. He calls me up and told me about his roommate, Hoarder Home. Told me everything about it. The problem was he called me up on a Thursday. The foreclosure was the following Friday. And so I set the appointment that next Friday. So I had 1 week to get this thing closed. Okay? And here actually is the title work itself. And I'm going to point out Fair Ridge Community Association, right? There were 2 different HOAs on this guy. But he had stopped, the first lien was actually in 2004. So it took them a lot longer. I don't see a lien release. Oh, no, there it is. Lien 2004, lien release, 2005, 851. So this thing, it took more than 10 years to foreclose on this guy. It took almost 20 years for these guys to get everything. They got a judgment in 2019. That's what kicked off the foreclosure process was the judgment in 2019 on the liens. So they had to get that thing to a judgment. Okay. They appointed a substitute trustee, Bean, Kinney, and Corman. They are a law firm that does HOA condo liens in the area. And so if you look at the liens, trust 270,500, 270, 750 got paid off. You guys see that? Trust of 360, satisfied 360 in 2006. So then really the only encumbrance was a first trust at 404, First Horizon Home Loans. I actually, when I did the title search, it had a 6.875% rate. And so I did that reverse AM that we were talking about earlier, found out the balance on that guy, estimated balance. But remember though, there's only an appointment trustee only for the HOA. So the loan was close to being current. He just, for whatever reasons, couldn't satisfy those judgments. The guy got laid off. He was a rock collector. He collected rocks and had a job, got laid off for like 3 years, and so, yeah, you did. Oh yeah, it was from, I don't think I have pictures. It was loaded from floor to ceiling. It was a hoarder home.
So this guy who was the wholesaler sent it to, he was living in a little hollow that he carved out in this hoarder home when we got in there. It was the most unbelievable. I've really seen a lot of unbelievable things, but it was among them, the way that they were living. And Charlie, you got to tell the story on how it got cleaned out.
Oh yeah, I do remember. So the guys hit us up for another, was it $5,000 or $10,000?
$5,000. The house was completely loaded. We thought they wouldn't leave it. But he said, not only will I do a piece for cash, I'll vacate, but you can pay me $5,000 and I'll clean out the house. And I thought, there's no chance this guy's gonna clean the house. He literally had like a toilet in the hallway, and it was just filled. He had never emptied one thing from this house. And for $5,000, I came back. He and the guy who hollowed out the little cave to live in had emptied that entire house. They rented a truck, and for $5,000 they figured out how to throw every last thing in that house away.
Did he move back in with his mom? I don't even know where these guys went. His mom lived close by.
He just drove off and waved. It was the strangest thing you've ever seen.
Anyway, this is real life. And here's the scenario of how it went down. I'm sorry, I didn't even get a phone call. I got a text from a referral source living with the owner. There was an HOA foreclosure, so that's on the 14th of April, the 17th of April. I had the title work complete. I think I did it myself, but I also had a title company do it just to check me out. The guy had a very strange last name, Krosniak. something like that. So it was a easy name to do a title search on in the Fairfax County Land Records. Met with the owner and agreed to the contract price, $403,500. Remember that 404 loan, because he had it out there for so long. I'll go back. The 404 loan, remember, it was originated July 29, 2005. We're in 2023, so I had 18 years seasoning on it, give or take a year, so 17 years. And so the seasoning, it was $240,000 left on it, okay? But he owed the HOA $40,000. He had a state income tax lien on there as well. And so the owner received approximately, Dave, one of my key numbers? He received about $100,000. 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. Those are our psychological numbers. We talk about it all the time. So he received about $100,000. That was his walking money. So, so we bought it for $403,500. Okay, the scheduled foreclosure date was April the 28th. We closed it April the 27th. So we literally, from the time we made the agreement, we closed it 6 days later. All right, so that's pretty good. But again, liquidity, right? Let's say it's you guys. So picture yourself in my chair, right? You guys could do this, $403,500 with cash, be liquid. Figure out your liquidity. Once a month, once a quarter, once a year, twice a year, okay? It's very important that you guys know this. I don't even remember, did we even, we paid it all cash, didn't we? We didn't borrow from commercial lending? Okay. See, even though we're hard money lenders, I've got lending sources all over the area. I got soft money, community banks. We have a great relationship with commercial lending, John Eubank and Tim. So we can get money anytime we need it, even though we have it. And just in case, we have liquidity events too, where we run out of money. Got to go raise more money. Happens to us. It's life. As long as you get out there and raise it, who cares? All right, so that's that deal example two. The summary, we bought it we did buy in cash. $403,500 cash, gave $10,000 to my buddy. He was happy with that. Then he got another $5,000 to clean it out. Our final renovation, I thought was gonna be $100,000. We went over budget, oh well, so swell. $103,900 was our renovation, and so four offers in a week on the MLS, because it's Fairfax County, and unit townhouse. We had 4 offers, and we sold it for $720,000, about a 5-month round trip. We made about $160,000. Right? It only takes one of these deals. I probably looked at 200 deals for that one, got one. But that's okay. But that came on the ABM side, always be marketing. I go to, like I tell you guys, go to meetups, talk to the smaller wholesalers, right? Your guys are still wholesaling. We got 2 of them in this room. Get to know them. Get on their cash buyer list, right? Or else they're just gonna keep coming to me. But they want a big cash buyer list because they want to go out to hundreds and hundreds of investors, so you guys get in a bidding war and they get the most for their offering, so then they can make the highest contract assignment fee. But that's what we got to do. Luckily for me, the wholesaler, even though it was $10,000 and we make quite a bit of money, this was his first, as far as I know, this was his first and only wholesale deal that I known that he's ever done. But he came to me because we had the relationship for 2.5 years. I met him at Omni's Cash Flow Breakfast Club in Loudoun County when he first started, back in, I think, 2001. So I had a 2-year relationship with this guy. He loved me to death, but that's what it takes. And he knew we could close in less than a week. All right, pre-foreclosure strategies, guys. Canvass the online ads or the paper ads for it. Identify what's a good candidate. Search the county, city, parish courthouses. The reason why I've got parish in there is because this presentation is a nationwide kind of presentation. Parish is for Louisiana pretty much. But for substitute trustee filings or foreclosure filings, understand the foreclosing instrument. What I mean by that, is it a first trust? Is it a second trust? Is it a HOA lien? Is it a condo lien? So understand who's foreclosing and why. Determine if the property has equity. In the pre-foreclosure space, we're not going after properties that don't have equity. Take them off your list. Now, they might come up on the MLS as a short sale. I'll cover that in a second. Market to the lead and try to buy before the auction. That's the way we like to do it. Once it gets to the auction, which is called a foreclosure, it's too late. You got too much competition. You guys have got to, you've got to separate yourself from the competition. Like I said earlier, if you look at the person next to you, They could be your buddy, but they're your competitor in this space. Everybody's competing. It's very tough right now in this space. If the auction gets canceled, I'm going to talk about this one time. Add that lead to your database and never delete it from your marketing database until the deed transfers, because you want to continue marketing. Because the reason why are these guys are repeat offenders. If they're behind on their mortgage, the auction gets canceled for whatever reason. There's 7 reasons why an auction could get canceled. Odds are it's coming back up as a repeat offender. Because if the homeowner doesn't solve their underlying problem, financial problem, then it's coming back up to foreclosure. Guarantee it. So I would say about 30 to 40 to 50% of pre-foreclosures come back up over and over and over again. All right, any questions on pre-foreclosures? I'll try and go faster.
Ever had any trouble with them renting back on short term, getting them out of there? I've heard that. What are the tricks to getting them out?
Okay, well, okay, I'll give you some tricks.
Right.
In our case, remember, you have a trusted relationship with the seller, and we have a path to occupancy as part of the deal. But have we ever had a chance,
Not where someone's reneging on an agreement. So
Right.
as you say, once you get the trust in place with a person, then you have this relationship.
Yeah.
You're helping them solve their problems. So
Yeah.
if they have a relocation problem, and that could happen, then you just help them solve that problem.
Yes.
Because when we're coming to these people,
Yes.
we're trying to solve like a totality of problems, not just a transactional. Anyone can buy the house, give them whatever amount of money. But to help them be organized about it and solve for those other problems, that gives us that advantage in that communication. So no one,
Yeah.
and then we also, we do use like a stick approach. We're going to retain, $5,000 or $10,000 that they're going to get immediately when they vacate. So they're going to be highly motivated.
Yeah.
So like they have a date, and it just says clearly that, you're not going to get it unless you vacate by this date. And then they may ask for an extension, which is
That's fine.
fine, perfectly normal.
They don't care.
But
Yeah,
we're just looking to move.
yeah,
And,
because
and when they know you're working with them, they'll work with you.
of course,
I-
yeah,
I think when you've gone so far, as they've now got $10,000 or $100,000 in their bank account that they didn't have before, they're ready to do some things. They're ready to make some moves.
right. And not only that, but the one time that happened to us was the $5,000 to pay those guys to empty the house, because they went over their time date that they were. I think they were a month. Yeah, they were a month late. They're about a month late. But if that does happen, and you guys are going to laugh. You guys ever heard the term keys for cash? We all heard of that? Y'all know what that is? Well, hell, just offer them a good keys for cash. But what you want to do, though, if you do have a hostile occupant in there, well, we did have a hostile occupant in there one time. Do you remember the drug dealer in the basement in the townhouse in Evansdale, where we had those guys out of there, but the man in the basement was still there, the drug dealer? We had that problem one time. I don't even remember how we got him out of there. We knew he was a drug dealer. He was holed up in that basement. I don't remember how we got him out. I think we had to have him evicted. Do you remember that? That was about...
But he wasn't part of the transaction.
No.
He was left over, holdover tenant.
It was a holdover drug dealer in the basement. That's the only time. Yeah, that's the only time that's happened.
Just remember he poked his head out. Yeah.
Remember he poked his head out? Oh yeah, I'll never forget that actually. Anyway, that happened to us. But if you have a problem, keys for cash. And so what we do is, so the way a keys for cash works, right? You give them certain dates to move out. Broom swept house, they give you the keys, you literally give them cash. So what we do is we have a stepped up approach to the keys for cash. So let's say it's $5,000. I'll give you $5,000 to be vacated in 2 weeks. If it goes to a month, that number goes down to $2,500. If it goes to 45 days, it goes to $1,000. That's your step. It's your choice. What agreement do you want? At the same time, once they sign that agreement, they agree to whatever they agree to. We're going to file an eviction, an unlawful detainer, at the same time. So as that's progressing its way through court, and you decide on day 45 that you want to renege on your agreement, I have already got a court date, and I've already closed to actually formally evicting you. So that's just how we would do it.
If this is in a scenario where the person's somewhat
Yeah.
positive or adverse to movement, generally they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, in the pre-foreclosure scenario, it's a trusted deal. You're buying it from the homeowner. They just need time, because once the house is sold, all of the stress falls off them. It's now an occupancy issue. Where am I going to move to? And now they got a clear mind because the albatross isn't on their back anymore, right? The gorilla's not on their back. The financial problem has been taken care of. They have some money in their pocket. They can now move on with their life. I can't tell you how many people are so thankful to hand us over 100 grand. I'm not kidding. They're thankful. Yeah.
In terms of seller's credit score, do we say the credit score is low versus getting it?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we do is, remember, their credit score is going to be banged up, right? They're certainly not going to buy another house. So we need to find them a rental. So of course we're licensed agents, so we do that for them. But so what we do is we will find them a rental that they like. Remember, they have some cash in this transaction coming out, right? Again, got to give them cash. So we'll tell the real estate agent, hey, look, these guys' credit is banged up. We first try and get away with a double, triple security deposit. If that doesn't work, we'll say we'll prepay the rent for these guys for 6 months out of their money. And if that doesn't work, then we'll just prepay the rent for a year. Do you know what the landlord's answer is? You got it. So that's how we do it. All right, that's a good strategy to use. And we've done that time and time again. But again, we're using ours.
Are you saying, does that motivate the person because they're credit? Do you think they're credited? They care about their credit.
It's less negatively impacted.
Oh, on the short, yeah, sure, on the short sale for sure.
Do you think they're thinking it?
I don't think they could give one hoot. No.
Yeah, usually a person who's in that kind of economics
They don't give one hoot. No.
doesn't care about anybody
Not yet.
getting credit.
Yep. Yep.
And that's all like.
Can I ask if that money's coming out of the equity share that you?
Yep. If we know that we
You
got to
take
put,
it out.
yeah. So what happens is
Out of your share or out of the seller's share?
seller,
Okay.
seller, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of times,
That's more than.
yeah. We just facilitate finding them a place, whatever they want. Usually, it's got Sam's name on it. He's putting them in his car and driving them around. I'm just kidding. Okay, next topic: foreclosures. What's a foreclosure? Remember, guys, we did pre-foreclosure. Now we're going to talk about foreclosures. It's totally different. A foreclosure is a foreclosure for about 3 minutes. It's the date of the auction, the time that the law firm opens the property up for bidding in a public forum to the time it's sold. Now, the public forum could be usually it's at the courthouse steps in Virginia. Sometimes it could be at the property address, all depend upon who's foreclosing. So you got to know where it's at. In Maryland, D.C., in D.C., it's at an auction house. Harvey West, Alex Cooper, Tidewater, and some other auction houses. You got to know where the location is. It's not the courthouse steps. Sometimes it could be a D.C. Superior Court, but you got to understand, right? So what happens? A foreclosure is basically an auction. It's a public auction, okay? Auctions are usually Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. However, lenders like us, and we have one coming up. If I have a foreclosure auction I need to foreclose on and I might want the property back, I might do a Monday morning foreclosure at 8:30 in the morning because I don't want anybody to know about it. I don't want anybody to show up. So keep an eye out. Got one coming up soon. Build a daily auction list. I'll show you what that looks like. Important to know what loan or lien is foreclosing. Why is that? Because senior liens, a senior means first. Anything below a first trust is junior, second trust, third trust, HOA liens, even IRS stuff. So you got to know the juniors. And so what happens at a foreclosure auction is, let's say the first trust is foreclosing. Anything below that on the lien chain gets wiped away at the auction itself. So the title's not necessarily as important as it is on a pre-foreclosure because at that point in time, you're buying it at the auction. And so everything else gets blown away. But it's very, very important that you know if it's a first trust versus a second trust. Now, the only thing that's different is the IRS. Remember that one pre-foreclosure I had subject to an IRS, right? They have 120 days right of redemption. Now ask me the next question. Have you ever seen an IRS redemption on a foreclosure house? Maybe one time. One time in probably 1,000. So the IRS doesn't usually redeem. Because by the time the IRS gets the notice that the first trust was foreclosing, whatever processes, wherever it goes, by the time they figure out that this house is being foreclosed, it's too late, okay? Because they're not organized enough. But they do have 120 days. The county taxes must be current, so the lender's in charge of everything until the foreclosure auction date, and then you, the buyer, gonna have to pay the county taxes, bring them current. HOAs, usually condos, all that stuff gets blown away.
So it doesn't even get paid back. The HOA would never see their money.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so because you got
The
that
only
house for
time-
pre-foreclosure, the example that you gave us, but it had.
Yes, but that's the difference. This is what I got to explain. The difference is when you buy it pre-foreclosure from an owner, all liens come into play. All the encumbrances come into play. When you're buying it at a foreclosure auction, everything else gets blown away. You don't have to pay it. Except what happens is let's say the house is worth $500,000. The foreclosing trust is $300,000, right? The house is worth $500,000, $300,000. Let's say the auction bid is $400,000. Okay, the first trust gets the $300,000. The next $100,000 goes to pay down the juniors. So if there's a HELOC on title for $50,000, if there's HOA liens on there for let's say $10,000, all that stuff does get paid. If it's that kind of a bid. Because
equity.
yes,
Okay.
if it has biddable equity, we call it. So if the opening bid's $300,000, it sells for $400,000.
Yeah.
The bank foreclosing gets the $300,000, give or take.
If it opens at 3, because they look at that and say that's market value minus
No,
percentage.
that's how much I'm owed. Fully loaded baked potato.
Oh, got it. And then,
Yeah, I'm the bank, right? I'm the bank. I am giving them my
and
opening
if
bid.
nobody bids on it up to 300, that's where all the liens would be wiped out.
Comes back to me if nobody bids. Comes back to me.
Right.
Yeah. But if
What
that
about
house,
water
Huh?
liens in the city?
What'd you say?
What about water liens in the city?
Oh yeah, water liens attach. Yeah, water liens in the city attach. So you got to know that. Yeah, water liens in the city attach. But that's a difference, right?
So for the second position being foreclosed, do you simply take the first position, or how does that work?
You got it. We talked about this briefly, right, at the break. Is that this is why you got to know the foreclosing instrument. And I've blown away a couple people on purpose, knowing that it was a second trust and they thought it was a first trust. And I bid them. I bid all the equity out of it. They bought the second trust. They lost their deposit. I cost them 20 grand. Now, when you're buying a second trust, you are what's called subject to the first trust. So you really have got to understand the first trust, the year the loan came out, the AM schedule, where it's 30-year or 15. You guys know what an AM schedule is? Amortization schedule. If I'm saying things, man, just stop me and say, I don't know what that means. Some of us are beginnings. This is what I'm here for. So you got to figure out whether it's a 30-year AM, a 15-year AM, understand the origination date on the first, and then you got to do what's called a reverse AM schedule on it. If they're current on the first, which I doubt they are, then you got to figure out what that loan balance is. So usually my rule of thumb is if I'm bidding on a second trust, I'll take that AM schedule, 30 years usually. I'll figure out how much principal is owed a year before the auction, and I'll assume they haven't paid for a year. That's my principal balance plus law firm and all that. So I kind of have a conservative idea of what the loan balance is. So when you're buying a second trust at the auction, you're doing a subject to the first. Now, the government is trying to pass a law. That law is never going to go through. If the law goes through, I have no idea how they're going to enforce it. These guys, excuse my French, they're idiots. You got non-business people, non-real estate people trying to enact legislation of something they know nothing about. I don't know how they're going to enforce it. I'm not sure that law is ever going to pass.
What's the law?
That if you buy a second trust at the foreclosure auction, you are responsible for paying the first trust off in full. That's right. I would just subject to it if it had a good interest rate. I wouldn't get a hard money loan on it. Why? I keep the first trust in place, fix and flip the house, and then pay it off. Just bring it, just make the payments. I would never use a hard money lender on that.
How can you do there are two different types of auction? One is buying first trust, the other auction is buying second trust.
Or HOA liens, or whatever. These are all public foreclosure auctions. This is before it gets to the real estate owned space, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Those are different types of auctions. This is just a courthouse auction. In Maryland and DC, an auction house has to be the auctioneer, not the law firm. In Virginia, law firms conduct the sale itself, usually at the courthouse steps.
And there's two different buying options with one property. One is first trust, the other one is second trust.
Yeah, because if you're buying a second trust, you're subject to the first trust. So in other words, you're buying it at the second trust amount, whatever your bid is, but it's the bid amount plus the amount left on the first trust. So you gotta compute that into your bidding. You guys follow that? Yeah? Okay. Now, the other thing too is that the process is slightly different too. In Virginia, once the gavel is struck and the bidder has won the bid, third party bidder, the property is usually closed in 2 weeks or less. Okay? In Maryland and DC, I'm gonna separate Maryland. In Maryland, it's a judicial process. So once you buy the property at the courthouse steps through auction house, it has to be judicially approved by a judge. So the judge has to approve it. That's a 30 to 60 day process. Montgomery County, I think, is running 60 days. PG County, I think, is running 45 days. Again, these are things you guys got to know. If you're going to buy it in DC, it's a little bit different. 2 ways in DC. Number one, if it's a consumer loan, judicial process. If it's a business-to-business loan like we do, it's non-judicial process. You got to close in 2 weeks. You guys get that? All right. Here's some foreclosure auction websites. The top ones are pretty much Virginia. So these are online. You can look at the auction schedules. At the bottom, I've got DC and Maryland. I've got Alex Cooper and Harvey West. Those are the 2 bigger auction houses. There's a couple smaller ones. Tidewater auction is good. I forget the 4th one off the top of my head, but there's another one. But I've got most of them. I've got most of them covered. McCabe Weisberg, that's the DC. They have DC, Maryland as well. I've got those on there. So that's kind of, you know, and so what we do after that, you guys can see this okay, I hope? It's tough when you're trying to throw spreadsheets into a presentation. And so what this is an example of my daily bid sheets and what I do every day. I used to go to these auctions every day, but the last couple years, you know, we're so busy doing everything else that I don't really have time to do this, but I do keep a good track of the results. I've got so many friends that I know that go to these auctions, they give me the results all the time. So basically what I do, Prince William County. So I do Prince William County, I've got City of Alexandria, I've got Arlington County, I've got Fairfax County, I got Loudoun County, and you don't really see here, I also do DC. So I track all those jurisdictions, all the daily foreclosures. My assistant Heather gets me my daily bid sheet. And so this is kind of what we do here. Address, I have the square footage, I've got the lien position in there, it's got sales date, it's got the time of the auction, vacant, I've got N with an asterisk, that actually means something to me. I got description of the property, you'll see TH31 1987, that means townhouse, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1987. I got the market value, and I've got the bid value. City, zip, tax assessment, all that stuff. So I am ready for each day to bid on properties, but this is not the way to buy houses right now.
Where are you calculating the bid value? Is that after the fact?
Nope. I'm literally running this back in 2023, but I'm literally running all these ARVs myself. In this case, I think this case on this bid sheet, I just did Prince William County because that was a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock auction. I wasn't going to go, what's this one? Falls Church. Fairfax had 10 o'clock and 11:30. This particular day, I was only going to go to the Prince William auctions.
I think I misread it. So that's what how much you would bid on it versus what the opening bid on it.
Yeah, so then what happens is, all right, that's a good question. So then what happens, that's just a placeholder. So in this case, I think I did 70% of the ARV. But then what I do though, is I'll go by the property to do an occ check on it to make sure if it's vacant, right? If it's occupied, that's fine. But if it's vacant, don't tell nobody. If it's vacant, it's been rekeyed, I got the keys to your house. To key or not to key.
You HUD keys or?
Yeah, you name it, I got them all.
Okay.
Not only do I got HUD keys, I got asset management keys. And I'll get into that in a minute. I got a 23 key, I got a 67 key, I got a 66 key, I got a 45 key, I got all kinds of keys. Yeah.
Good guy to know.
Yeah. We need it, hey, really, I'm not kidding. No, I'm not kidding. We need to do a 7 on your side special. And I need to show up to a couple of houses and let them in the house because I got the keys. So, it's a good rule of thumb. If you guys have bought a house, and if it ever was in the pre-foreclosure or foreclosure, change your damn locks. The first thing you got to do is change your locks when you buy a house. I got the keys to your house. All right, good. That's a good point. Anyway. All right, so that's an example of a bid sheet. All right. Here's another bid sheet, but this is actually a property that I bought. Look at 3214 Tally Ho. You see where it says CJE. I'm sorry, the margins didn't turn out too well. 2356 square feet, 1340. It was in a place called Lake Ridge. You guys ever heard of Linwood? Really nice property in Linwood. It was the only lot in Linwood that had a half acre. It was a great house. However, there's only one reason why I bought it. Oh, I got her name in here. I'm sorry. Crap. I should have deleted that. The owner was a RE/MAX agent in the RE/MAX Hall of Fame. She got foreclosed on. She was a good friend of mine. The only reason why I bought it, I paid too much for it. House was worth $775. My bid price was $581,250. I bought it for $600,000. Paid $20,000 more for it because I knew her, and I wanted to make sure that she was being treated the right way. Because if any one of my competitors would have bought it, they would have threw her out on her face, and she was going through such a hard time. And so I made sure that we bought it. And so what happened is after we bought it, remember she's in the RE/MAX Hall of Fame. She sold so many houses. She had no investor experience at all. She had no nest egg. She had nothing, and she was a good person. And so what happened was, I'm at an AAU tournament. This is why I know exactly where I was this day. I get a phone call from Danica, my assistant. She calls me up. She goes, have you been on the missing persons report? Have you been on the news at all? Evidently she's following the police APBs or whatever. She's my assistant. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? It's a Saturday. She calls me up. She goes, this particular owner, she's on the missing persons report. They can't find her. So it took us a minute. I knew her sons. I called her sons up. We figured out where they finally found her. But anytime you go missing, she was sleeping in her Escalade. She was sleeping in Warrenton County somewhere. She'd been there for a couple days. And so anytime you're part of a police missing persons report, they got to do certain things. They got to check in, make sure you're okay. And so we had already agreed to her a move out date for her. And so the move out date come and went by about 6, 7, 8 months. And so we had to just figure out, us collectively, again, remember guys, we're solving problems. So me and her sons and I, we had to collectively figure out how we were going to handle this. And so if I would have let one of my competitors buy this house, it would have been ugly, and I couldn't have had that happen. So that's just some of the things you do in this business. And honestly, I don't know, guys. I don't know that we made much money. I don't know where Sam went. He disappeared. He can tell you. We bought it for $600. I had a loan against it. I held it for a year. The house needed every bit of $125,000 in reno. So I'm in there for $725 plus holding costs. I don't think we made money. We probably broke even. I might have lost money. I don't remember. But that's an example of a deal that I recently got at the courthouse steps. Overpaid for it, but I did it for a reason. But that's an example. Okay. Foreclosure strategies. I gave you some websites in your area, right, for you guys to look at. Understand if auction gets canceled, how they work. Build your daily bid sheet. I've been doing it since 2009. So I've been a player in the space for 15 years. 2009 and 10 is where we built our rental portfolio. I was knocking them dead. I was buying these brand new townhouses at the time. They were built in 2005, 2006. Remember the option arm crisis? You guys know what an option arm is? Well, these guys had these bad loan products, negative amortization, subprimes, right? They were paying $3,500 a month for a mortgage payment. I was buying brand new townhouses, 3, 4 years old, keeping the owners in them. If the landscape looked good, I knew they were taking good care of their houses. I was turning them into tenants. We were just shooting fish out of a barrel. So they were paying $3,500 a month. The rent was about $1,800. The house was in good shape. I turned an owner into a tenant. They stayed with us for years. And that's how we built up our rental portfolio between 2009 and 11, because it cash flowed. Make sure you understand the foreclosing instrument. I cannot relate to you how important that is. I have driven up some of my competitors so high on second trust and dropped it on them, and they lost $20,000, $30,000 at a time. And the only reason why I did it is because people know me, that when I show up, they know I know what I'm doing. They know I know how much is owed on that first trust. They know I've done my homework. So when I bid, they just make sure they bid over me. That's their goal in life. So I had taught some lessons. And one guy came to me, yeah, not so nice. The one guy came to me to this day, when I did it, the one time, I felt so bad. The guy lost 20 grand. The guy lost 20 grand. A week later, he sees me at the auction. He comes up to me and he goes, Charlie, thank you very much. I'm glad you did what you did because you taught me a $20,000 lesson. I felt so bad. But we're still friends to this day, believe it or not. And so I told him, I said, look, you guys like to bid on top of me because you're just trying to eke one out on me. I said, I sort of lost my mind on a couple of these auctions. I said, you guys know I do my research, but sometimes, guys, you need to let me have some properties. You need to let me have some. You need to let, what'd you say?
I said you a bully.
Oh yeah, I was a bully. I'm not proud of it, but that happened. Understand the occupancy. What I mean by that is obviously vacant, occupied, but also tenant, owner occupant. It's really important because if you're buying a house at the foreclosure block and it's tenant, you got to keep that tenant in there. You got to honor their lease. Got to understand that. Stay true to your numbers. Cashier check amounts are going to qualify you as a bidder. Understand the deposit amount. Location of the auction. Most are on the courthouse steps in Virginia and Maryland. DC, they're not. They're at auction houses. Harvey West, Alex Cooper, the two big ones. Understand your competition, kind of like I did when I was the bully. Feel bad about it. I understand my competition. They understand me. I don't get houses at the courthouse steps much anymore. I don't really show up as much. The money's not there right now. The best and least attended auctions are sales where the trustee does not have a website schedule. These are my favorite auctions to attend.
The newspaper ones?
Yes, sir. It's the newspaper ones of law firms that don't have a website. Because most of the competitors that bid at the courthouse steps, they're used to going to all these websites and they're used to showing up, not showing up. It's just that remember, the auctions, the trustee sales are usually 28 days before the actual auction date. So you've got to keep a tickler of that ad and that auction date because they're not going to have a website. So then you just got to call up. And usually they're smaller law firms. So they only do one house here, one house there. They don't do that many houses. And so you got to find out the smaller substitute trustees, the law firms. And so those are good ones to attend because what you've done is you shrunk your competition. So if there might be 20 people at an auction, the smaller ones, there might only be 4 or 5. So by shrinking your competition, it's good because if let's say only 3 people show up and all 3 of us know each other, right? It might be, okay, you get a house, and then I get a house, right? It might be kind of not really an agreed upon. You don't want to do collusion, but it's kind of like, okay, us 3 at an auction. Okay, you get one, I get one. Back in 2010 or 11, we had an F&M auction like that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Not too many people showed up at 4 o'clock, but there happened to be 3 bidders. There were 3 houses going. And this was the days where a lot of people didn't show up to auctions and this business wasn't glamorized. So there were 3 bidders and 3 houses. We just happened to all have gotten a house. Now, one of us didn't get a great deal. The other one of us did. One of us got an okay deal. But we all got houses and we all made money. That's how it is. Just don't collude. I had other friends back in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. They were colluding. So what they did is they put together, the 5 of them put together an LLC, and the LLC was the winning bidder, and then they would just divide the houses up to the bidders. So none of them would bid. Only the one would bid on behalf of the LLC, and then they would take turns on who got the house. They were caught colluding by the FBI. They went to jail, and I know 3 of them. Happens, but it hasn't happened in a long time. Be careful. Any questions on foreclosures? And I'll quickly run through the rest of this. No? All right.
Just one for the last one. So the newspaper ones, are you finding them in the Washington Post, or are they like smaller firms in like motor counties that just do?
Yes,
like
yes to all your questions.
Okay.
Post, Times, VirginiaPublicNotices.com, online, smaller papers, Prince William Times, Inside Nova. There's once in a while in the Wall Street Journal, but not too often. The local It just depends, right? Any newer publication, but what you have to understand is they're not Fuck Your Times. I think Fuck Your Times is another one. There's a Leesburg paper. There's the smaller papers are good sources, but a lot of people aren't advertising in those smaller papers anymore. But they're good to find the one-offs. Like the one that we're about ready to do, I have instructed my attorney to publish it, I think, in the Fuck Your Times or something like that. As long as it's a public paper of a circulation of something, and I'm going to do an auction at 8:30 on a Monday morning. So.
Can I ask one? I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Huh? Okay. All right. My next choice is Friday at 5 o'clock on a beach trip. Friday during the summer. Yeah, but we're a lender too, so.
Can I ask about a DC question just real quick, if we have a second? For foreclosure specifically in DC, I'm kind of terrified of them because of the eviction laws more than anything.
I would be.
I mean, from my understanding, it's about 2 years
I would
after you
be.
win the bid to maybe you actually get yourself on that house. So, your experience been about the same, or?
Yes. I won't touch anything in DC that's occupied.
Okay, yeah.
I will not. I will not. If it's not vacant in DC, okay, here's my DC rules. I'm glad you asked that question. If it's not DC, if it's in DC, if it's not vacant, and that ARV isn't divided by 2, I'm not your guy. Be careful. Huh? Oh, yeah, that's right. You heard this before. You stop it. Yeah, you heard this one before. Yeah. Yeah, because we're involved, not we, my lender friends that took properties back that are occupied are involved in 2 sovereign citizen cases as we speak. Guys,
Is it recent?
well, going on right now. Do y'all know what a sovereign citizen is? A sovereign citizen is somebody of the United States of America who's denounced their American citizenship. They have denounced their social security number and their birth date, and they are claiming themselves as sovereign citizens of the United States. They're in court right now. Yep, I know you laugh. They're both in DC. Yes, we're very careful in DC. All right, bank-owned properties. Okay, so what happens is once a house goes to this foreclosure auction, a public auction, and remember, the bank is specifying the opening bid. 2 ways they do it. Number 1, it's a full debt bid, everything they're owed, or they can do what's called a specified bid. Well, sometimes what happens is when the bank opens up the bid, all of the third-party investors that are there are going to say, hey, that price is too high for me to pay for the house. The house ain't worth that much, including the purchase price and the renovation and the holding costs, all that, right? Doesn't make financially sense. So then what happens is nobody bids and the house gets taken back into what's called REO, bank-owned properties, REO. REO stands for real estate owned, okay? And so that's basically, but also too though, don't confuse this with this thing called jingle mail. You guys ever heard of jingle mail? Back in the day, especially in the subprime days, in order for some folks to avoid foreclosure, they didn't want to get foreclosed on, they would literally take their keys, that jingle, they would literally put it in an envelope, mail it back to the bank and servicer and say, hey, I'm going to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. That was called jingle mail. So some bank-owned houses can be a deed in lieu of foreclosure, okay? This is where and as a lender on the hard money side, I don't have that many foreclosures. But if I do, 9 times out of 10, we do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. I just picked up a property on Leechburg that they owed us fully loaded baked potato, $170,000. It's worth $280,000, $290,000. We were going to foreclose the next day. They tried to sell it through the MLS. They got day before closing. It didn't close, and I told them, I said, look, I said, it took me forever to get that auction date in Maryland. And I was working with the owner. I said, if you guys don't sell that house in the MLS and close and get me my money back, you're going to give me a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Again, bully. I was being a bully. Of course, I can't make them do that, but because I had a good relationship with them, the real estate agent and the owner, they obliged. Deal fell through. It was a USDA loan or something like that. It was a manufactured home on a foundation. The bank turned it down for whatever reason. They didn't close. That night, I had my lawyer do the deed in lieu of foreclosure paperwork. We got the house. I paid them $10,000 for their, again, my favorite number. I paid them $10,000 to sign that deed in lieu of foreclosure, even though they ain't made me a payment in 9 months. It's the right thing to do. But I now have the house We're painting and carpeting it now. Now the house is worth 270 or something like that, 280. I was owed 170, so that's what we're going to sell it for, and so we just recouped a little bit more equity. That's all. Okay, so that's happened to us, deed in lieu of foreclosure. Typically the banks, now I'm a bank. I'm a private lender, kind of a bank, but not an institutional bank. I have all these different options to dispose of the house. Okay, number one, I can sell it through what's called an asset management company. And I've got a slide for that in a second, and I'll explain that in a minute. Usually what the asset management companies do is they hire a local agent to market and sell it in the MLS. So let's take, for example, I'm Wells Fargo, right? I've got loans all over the country. And all these loans, or some of these loans are foreclosing, and I've got to take them back. So what I do is I'll hire this thing called an asset management company, let's say in Colorado. So all my foreclosures are running through, it's called Premier Asset Services. It used to be, and they used to be in Maryland or Iowa. So they were running it through Premier Asset Services. One asset management company. Then what the asset management company would do is they would have local agents local to that house signed up on their platform, and they would dispose of the properties that way through asset management companies. The other way they dispose of them is through auctions, right? And I'll give you some auction sites here in a second. They also would do it in bulk sales, but honestly, guys, other than Cleveland, Ohio's of the world, the Detroit, Michigans of the world, these other cities, I've never actually seen a bulk sale in this area, never. But I was told they've been done. VA homes, HUD homes, right? What happens though is if you guys know what a VA loan is, Veterans Administration? FHA is HUD, you all know that? If they're guaranteed, VA guaranteed or HUD guaranteed, right? The bank, the investor, gets their money back from the government, but then HUD VA sells the houses. So they've got their various websites that they sell their houses through as well. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, same thing. Okay? So that's how they dispose of them. Here's a little discussion on asset management company. I sort of jumped the gun a little bit. But the large banks hire them to dispose of their REO assets. They in turn hire local REO agents to do the cleanup, the trash outs, get the utilities on, pay the HOA bills, do what's called a broker price opinion, get it priced right, get it on the market and sell it. There's the wheel and spoke system, right? So what it means is that you got this wheel, so you got this central hub. So let's say I'm Wells Fargo or Bank of America, whatever it is. So let's say I'm Bank of America, and I've got this asset management company. Let's say they're in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. So I'm the wheel in Denver, but then my spokes go out throughout the country because I've got a network of real estate agents, I've got a network of appraisers, I've got a network of, not necessarily title companies because they usually use national title companies, but I've got these spoked out systems in these regional areas, and then I'm the company in charge of disposing of that asset. All right, and that's how that works. But they also, like I said, these asset management companies, they offer a variety of other services, management services, valuation services, and dispo services. Remember I told you that I have a key to all these houses? Well, all the banks, the Bank of Americas, the Wells Fargos, the Capital Ones, they rekey all of their assets to the same key. So Bank of America has a key, Capital One has a key, Wells Fargo has a key. And so they instruct their property preservation companies when they do a rekey that they rekey it to the same keys. It's logistically, it makes sense if you guys think about it. One bank is going to want to have all these different key sets for all their houses across the country. It makes total sense if you think about it. Annual membership for REO agents, so you can sign up for all these asset management companies if you want to get into the REO world. These are some of the asset management companies. The reason why I know so much about this is because in 2008, 9, and 10, we were REO agents for all these companies. At one point in time, Sam and myself had, in 2-year period of time, we sold 500 houses in the MLS as REO agents. Yeah, 82039, 71905, those are our numbers, MLS. Look us up between 2009, 2011. It was gangbusters. We could not sleep. My phone didn't stop ringing from 7 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Our signs were everywhere. They were in the Wall Street Journal, they were on CNN, they were in the Post, because we had a foreclosure rider. I had my name on there and a foreclosure rider. So we were in all these big outlets. And so what happened was we got so many sign calls that I literally had to farm out, and it was only a small brokerage. It was me and Sam, because we're Green Dot. And so I had to farm out all of my buy lead sign calls to the Weikerts of the world and the Long and Fosters of the world. Other agents, we just couldn't handle it. We were inundated. So that's how I know a little bit about it. So these are the various websites of the asset management companies. There's more out there, they come and go. But ResNet's a big one, Equator's a big one. These other ones are big ones. FAST is big, but they offer a lot of different services, okay? The other way that you dispose of bank-owned properties is through these auction websites, right? And so you've got auction.com, that's Wells Fargo, you got Exome, Hubzu, Ocwen, Bank of America's Exome, ServiceLink's another good auction site. So these are all good auction sites. Like I still bid all the time on Exome, some of the Bank of America properties, I still bid, but you know, they might have auctions going for 30 or 40 times before they agree to sell, because the bank has a certain price that they want to get. If they don't get it, they just auction it off the following week.
Do we have to pay in order to use those websites?
Nope. You just need an ID, you need a email address, and you sign up. Now, what you need to do though, is if you're going to bid on something, you might have to put up like $1,000 credit card reserve just to bid on it. And if you get the bid, then you're going to have to put up a earnest money deposit. Cash your funds, wire them money. But you don't need any, they don't charge you to bid. These are all free sites. HUD Homes, and then VA Homes are on those websites. We also have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and USDA. So there's a lot of different ways. That's just another way for these institutions to offload properties. Pitfalls. Okay. If you're bidding online, right, make sure you understand the buyer's premium. Okay. Auction.com goes from 0 to 2.5% to 5.5%. Hubzu is usually 4.5%. Exome, same thing, no buyer premium to a 5% buyer premium to a 2.5% buyer premium. So you have to understand your buyer premium when you're bidding on these houses. At the courthouse steps, when we're buying foreclosures, there's no buyer premium. But here, you got to understand the buyer premium so that you put it into your bid price. A lot of times, banks will bid against themselves. I got a great story on auction.com. We almost sued them because I was bidding on a lot of houses, and I knew it wasn't other investors bidding against me. They had the bank and a bot actually bidding against me, and so we were going to go after those guys because they had to disclose it. First of all, they didn't have an auction license at the time in Virginia, but then they had bot bidding, and so now they'll tell you that there is bidding against you. So you got to understand when there's a bot. You guys know what a bot is? Like a programmed, yeah. And the property will come back to auction many times before they're sold because the banks are going to have a reserve price on these sites, right? And so if they don't get the reserve price, which they do not disclose, then they'll just re-auction the property. I had one on Exome on TAYAC, T-A-Y-A-C-K. They literally auctioned it off 45 straight weeks. I got a call 45 straight weeks from my buddy Alex at Exome.com letting me know when the auction ended. So I got to know his wife and his kids and what his kids did because he would call me every week. And I'd answer the phone, hey Alex, how are you? We didn't get that house. It sold a couple weeks ago. I don't know who bought it. All right?
So Charlie, on the slide before, it said auction.com with Wells Fargo beside it. Are you saying that they are like the lister for Wells Fargo?
No, it's a lot of Wells Fargo properties.
Oh, it just happens?
Yeah, a lot of Bank of America properties.
Just made me think, are these groups then, I don't want to say hiring these companies, that they pretty much are using one of these sites as a preference?
Yeah, they are. Well, they also, like, Ocwen actually owns Hubzu. So Ocwen's actually a servicer.
Which one?
Ocwen, the third one down.
Third one.
So these guys, Ocwen is so in the mortgage world, guys, what you have to understand is you have a couple things going on. You have these things called servicers, Ocwen being a servicer, PHH being a servicer, there's different servicers. But behind the servicers are the actual investors themselves. So you paying your mortgage, you're probably paying a mortgage to a servicer, FCI or whatever. But you don't really know who the underlying investor is because it could have been assigned, okay? And so that's, in this case, I kind of got bank, and then the servicer. So that's what Ocwen is. But Ocwen actually owns Hubzu. So sometimes they're in cahoots, they're in bed with each other. And so these auctions,
Small banks, local banks, Perkin Herbert, those kind of things, right? Is there a way to do that regionally or locally, or is that Tough to do.
You got a slide right here on it. It's coming up. It's coming up. All right, so I'm going to quickly go through these slides. All these slides are different deals that we bought. This one was on Exome, 2427 Gerard Street, and I kind of covered some of the numbers on that. The next one is auction.com. We bought 100 Morton Court. This was a bunch of years ago, but that's an example of one that we bought. But see, the important thing that you guys got to see though is remember I had the auction bid sheet, right? When I go to these foreclosure auctions, in our bank auction world, it's a little bit different. And so I'll have the seller net, which is my after repair value, renovation budget. I'm looking at pictures. Or if it's vacant, I'll go inside it. I got an acquisition percentage, a holding percentage, a sales cost percentage, and a profit margin, how much I want to make. But these percentages though are variable and it all depends. See, myself at 2% buying costs because I'm using cash or something, right? I have less. If you're using a hard money lender that's going to charge you 2.5, 3 points, then that needs to be changed to 5%. So I can variable change these percentage, all depend upon where I'm bidding. In Northern Virginia, I think in Manassas Park, I wanted to make 12%. Well, sometimes the margins might get tight. I might only need to make 8%. If I'm in DC, I might want to make 20%. So these things are variable by nature, and that's kind of like one of my bid guides. And so that's one thing that you guys got to take out of it. And I got the same thing on the other one too. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Oh my gosh, what happened? Sorry, guys. Okay, but I got them on both spreadsheets. You see the 2%, 3%, 4%. So those are just variable to me, because obviously your variable costs for your holding and your renovation, and so you got to be on point about that. All right. Okay. Here. See where it says asking? I got no buyer premium on that one. No buyer premium on that one. And this one, Stretton Farm, there was a $2,000 buyer premium. How about the other? I wonder if I have it. Oh, yeah. And so here is acquisition fee. In this particular case, there was a 5% buyer premium, so it fluctuates. So you guys have to understand that if you're bidding online. Okay, here's your local question, right? Then you have the local. Right, you got the credit unions and you got the regional. You're talking about the community banks, Freedom Bank of Virginia, Burke & Herbert of the world, John Marshall's of the world, Sandy Spring, and it's very important for you guys to know this because I'll tell you why in a second. The assets are disposed regionally. They don't go to asset management companies. There's usually in each one of these banks one point of contact, and they're different titles. It could be a collection manager. It could be called the loss mitigation manager. It could be a litigation and debt recovery specialist. They all have different titles. The reason why this is important to you is because what's going on right now in the community bank space? I'm glad you asked that question, actually. What's going on? Y'all have any idea what's going on in the community bank space?
They're having more regulations.
Yeah, kind of. They are. What's really going on? Have you guys recently been to a Class B or a Class C office space? Y'all know what that is? Older office buildings, Class B, Class Cs. Do you know what the biggest characteristic of those buildings are these days, other than the fact that they're old as hell? They have vacancies, 50% or more, 70% or more. Do you know who's loaning investors against those office spaces? Huh? Community banks. $7.5 million or less. Okay? Do you know what happens to a valuation of a Class B, Class C office space where the vacancy is 50 to 70%? Do you know what happens to the valuation of it? It plummets. So if that building was worth $10 million and it's at a 70% vacancy and I've got a $7 million loan against it, the value of the building, no kidding, is probably $1 million based on this thing called the net operating income. So now what happens? I've got a $5 million loan of an asset that's worth $1 million cash flow net operating income. It's not even worth what it's cost to build it. But what do I got to do as a community bank? I've got to write that loan down. I've got to recapitalize my bank. There's only two ways to recapitalize a bank. I either get new deposits from other clients like yourself, or I sell off assets. I sell off performing and non-performing assets. And so that's a really good question, because if you don't take anything out of this REO piece, take the fact that That is probably your best lead source to go after if you guys know certain people working at these community banks. Okay, so that's a good.
I mean, Charlie, by definition, it's almost like there's a bubble there that's ready to burst, right? I mean, ever since COVID, it seems like people are working from home, nobody's going into the offices, Class B, C buildings are emptying out.
A bubble of gigantic proportions, right? Gigantic. So the next question is, why hasn't this happened yet? Are you guys following all the DC foreclosures? Y'all ever been to the Waldorf Astoria? Pow. Y'all ever been to 212 Maryland Avenue? Big old government building. Pow. Foreclosed, foreclosed, foreclosed. This is real institutions losing real big money, and you know what they're doing right now behind their keyboards? They're trying to figure out how to take this money from Wall Street and create losers on Main Street. That's what they're doing right now. That's why we haven't had that bubble burst yet, because these guys are trying to figure out how to convert all these losses to all you guys on Main Street, because the guys on Wall Street are getting crushed. You know, I don't know when it's going to pop. We've been waiting for this bubble to burst for 2 or 3 years. And I've got direct lines into presidents of community banks as we speak that when I call them, they're going to answer the phone. Sandy Springs in trouble. John Marshall, trouble. I just talked to a Sandy Spring loan officer the other day. She tells me, Sandy Spring commercial loan officer. Talked to her yesterday. I can't give you her name. She goes, yeah, for every 10 deals that I used to do, I'm only doing 1 of those right now. So I said to her, I'll say, Jessley. I said, Jessley, I know you work there. I said, please understand your bank's balance sheet. Understand how much in these loans that you have out to Class B, Class C office space. So then what's happened though, I'm getting off tangent. That's a good question. So then what's happened though is this created a different, in the middle, missing middle, in the lending space, kind of where we are, this has created a huge void of the missing middle. So the missing middle is $750,000 loans all the way up to $10 million, maybe $20 million. Because the regional banks are no longer lending in this space right now because of their troubles, the missing middle is there. So there's a ripe opportunity for lenders to create a broker model to lend into the missing middle space. We're doing it already on my Clear Sky Financial side. I created a broker model, hired on some commercial loan officer from Blue Ridge Bank that got consumed. This guy's been out of work for 2 years. He's starting my loan broker business in the missing middle, the $750 to $20 million space. Huge void because of this. Stay tuned, guys. Have your eyes open. Things are going to get rough before they get better.
Coffers are dropping too. I think
What'd you say?
the city tax.
Oh yeah,
coffers, because
killed.
It'll be terrible to their budgets in the next few years.
Beyond terrible. You think the Redskins are coming to D.C.? Yeah. Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago. What's the most famous city? San Francisco. Absolutely obliterated because of this crisis. And everybody wants to turn their back. And let me tell you something. Y'all know why? Y'all know why that property I foreclosed on Allison Street didn't sell for $1.3 million. I had to sell for $900,000. You know why? Crime kills prices. Because people are not going into the urban centers to go to work, and because there's less people, crime is there. Wake up. Baltimore City, crime. Washington, D.C., Ward 7 and Ward 8, on fire. I don't care what anyone says. We know it. We got real estate there. I can't give away houses there.
Where is this again?
Ward 7 and Ward 8.
No.
Anacostia. Y'all know that. We're having a hard time. Fort DuPont. I can name all the cities. So y'all got to be, and that's what's causing it. We're in for a, and so what they're trying to do, like I said, the guys on Wall Street are trying to figure out how you guys on Main Street take the hit for this. Be careful. All right. Where was I? Right. Strategies, determining the disposition strategy. You guys know the REO websites, right? I included most of them. Build your bid sheets. Understand the occupancy, right? Stay true to your numbers. Build relationships with REO agents. Again, guys, this isn't one size fits all. You got to have a lot of different ways of doing this. Have the listing agent submit your offer so that they get both sides of the commission. Okay? Sorry. All right.
Oh, you switch.
What do you need? Okay. Bang. You want that one?
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? How am I doing on time? I have no idea.
12:35.
12:35. Almost.
Oh my.
You got 25 minutes.
Holy smokes. You're serious. You're serious, right? What? Oh my God. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Everything is great. I'm just saying.
What'd you say?
Everything is great.
Yeah, but I'm less than halfway through. All right.
We got time, buddy.
Huh? All right. I'll keep trudging along, guys. I really apologize. All right, short sales. All right, what is it? What's a short sale? It's where a owner is asking to sell their house more than what the property is worth, which means it has to be shorted, right? Short in the bank. There is no such thing as a short sale being done without a real estate agent involved, without the property going on the MLS. The property has to go on the MLS for at least a weekend. Okay, so you can't have a real estate agent selling a short sale, putting their straw buyer in place to buy it all cash at a low price to finagle the bank. Those days are over. Okay, voluntary sale, usually before the lender forecloses. That's what it is. Subject to bank approval. It's called third-party approval, right? The underlying mortgage or bank or banks have to approve of it. If it's more than one bank, you need 2 short sale approval letters. Okay, the problem with that is the timing has got to make sense. They got to be timed up. It's really hard when you're dealing with a short sale with 2 different banks that have 2 different departments that can get you that short sale approval letter at the same time. All proceeds go to the lender, and the lender foregoes a deficiency judgment. Okay? Homeowners sometimes will have to bring cash to close, not very often. Financial consequences to the seller less severe than a foreclosure. Okay, so it's a voluntary sale. Pros and cons. The pros, it allows the owner to dispose of the debt because you're going to have a deficiency, right? Less costly to the owner than a typical home sale, or it's less costly to the bank. Buyers can buy a property at a discount, which is good. Lenders may write off part of the debt as a loss, and lender avoids a foreclosure and an REO. So they would much rather do this than to go to the foreclosure auction. Cons, fewer legal disclosures. It's an as-is sale because no homeowner is going to do any home inspection items. You got to buy it as an as-is. More paperwork, right? Because as a homeowner, you're going to need to give the bank a lot of different things. Your current income, you got to give them a short sale letter while you're in distress. You have to give them a personal financial statement. You're going to have to give them a couple years of tax returns. They're going to want to see you as a homeowner, and you're going to have to provide them a lot of paperwork to get it approved. So the bank's going to want to know your financial standing. It will still damage a seller's credit rating. Not as bad as a foreclosure or bankruptcy. Okay, so that's the con. Short sale deal example. This is Catalpa Court a bunch of years ago. She had a list date, 2014. She actually put it under contract with a buyer friend of hers, a straw buyer, right? I don't even know if it was a real buyer. About a year and a half, so it's under contract, but here's the key criteria that I want to point out. This particular property was under contract with 0 days on the market. So here's what she did. She put the house on the MLS short sale, had a buyer come in, right? One of her buyer buddies, put the house active for like 10 minutes, immediately put it under contract. I found out about it because it had 0 days on the market. So then what happened is I emailed her. I said, hey Doris, how are you? I said, congratulations. I see that you have this property under contract at Talbot Court. Congratulations. Good for you. I said, we're an all-cash buyer. If for whatever reason that buyer falls out, go ahead and give me a call. I'll buy it. All right, so then what happens? I forgot all about it because I do this all the time. July 2014, 10/10/2015 comes. What's that? Year in August, September, October. Year in 3 months. She calls me up. She goes, hey, Charlie, how are you? Buyer pulled out. First of all, I had no idea what the hell she was talking about because it's a year and 3 months ago. I didn't even know the address. She goes, would you consider purchasing the house? So what's the first thing I say? Yes. Didn't know the address, didn't know the price. So then I said, hey, Doris, give me the address. I said, how much do you want for it? She goes, blah, 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 Catalpa Court, 140,000. We said yes. And so We actually closed it 2 months later because we still needed a new short sale approval letter from the bank, and that took 2 months. So we closed it 2 months later for about, I don't know, 140 grand, sold it for 223, but guess what? Guess who we used as the listing agent? Doris. So Doris got what's called a triple header. She got the listing of the short sale. She got us as the buyer, right? Because we're not, even though we're licensed realtors, I could have kept the commission. And then she got the listing from us. So we call that a triple header. Okay? That's why it's important for you guys to know, because again, these investor-friendly agents or these short sale agents need to be somebody who you're asking. Okay? Short sale strategies, right? In this case, and this is the only time that I'm ever going to tell you the candidacy MLS. In this case, anytime you see a short sale that's been under contract for 0 or 2 days, you know that there's something fishy going on. Okay? Right. Something's going on. So build relationships with short sales. Now, it's going to come back. Short sales are already starting in Washington, D.C. Short sales are already starting in PG County. Everything is cyclical, right? So it's going to come back. So this is a good strategy. Build relationships, understand how many loans against the title. That's important because if you have a 2-bank short sale, odds are it might not go through. It's probably going to go to foreclosure. Okay? One loan short sales have the best chance to be approved. I've got okayed, but it's approved. And here you go. There's your nugget of the day. If you don't get anything out of this, you're going to remember the day you heard somebody talk about short sales and they gave you the triple header program. Okay? And incentivizes agents. Yes.
Would the bank subject to these loans? They've short sold it. Would they give it to you in some sort?
Yeah, they might do that. You can subject to it if you want. But the question is, though, here's the question. You as a buyer, you can certainly go in there and subject to it because the sub 2 group does it. But why on earth would you buy a house, because you're subject to the mortgage, at an equity position that's negative? I mean, if you're willing to do that because you need a place for your family to live and the subject to amount is less than a rent, then that might make a little bit of sense. But I don't know why you would buy a house where the loan encumbrance is more than what the house is worth.
Well, if they're like 4 or 5 years old, they've paid down a little bit, price has gone up a little bit, and
yeah, but remember, but remember though, right now, present day value, I'm short. So the loan amount might be $400,000, but the house is only worth $375. So right now I'm subject $200 to $375. It makes sense if the cash flow's there. But then
PACE does it. PACE shows people,
I
doesn't
know
say
he
you
does.
pays more money. I was just saying, I know you do, yes.
I know he does.
Like, you can go for it, PACE, because you got zillions of dollars.
And that's how I feel about it. And that's one of my big problems. That's my big problems with Pace Morby. No, because my philosophy in building wealth is a lot different. And that's why I'm here, is because my philosophy in building wealth is you buy into equity. Whether it's a buy and hold or whether it's a fix and flip, you buy into equity. You can certainly buy into cash flow. I get it. Baltimore City is famous for cash flow properties, but they're never going to go up in value. Baltimore City is the same price on some of these assets as it was 20 years ago. So it just depends on your strategy. Pace Morby does have some good strategies, which is I cover a lot of his subject twos.
I was wondering why they were so low. I mean, it just seems, it's a great city. It's like, why isn't it revitalized more?
Because Amazon.com didn't move there. They got hurt by that. There is nothing. The financial companies pulled out. There's not enough. There's just not enough. Baltimore is a port city. It's an industrial city.
Good medical.
They have Johns Hopkins. They do.
Now, and
They do. They do.
Maryland
But
White University,
No,
and they
Have
had
the hand and.
I'm not disagreeing, but what I'm,
But that only employs a percentage.
yes,
That's
yes.
why.
They need,
it's declined.
And then the zoo.
It's declined.
they need it. What they need is they need what's called a technical intervention. Whether it's AI companies moving in, they need more technology moving in to build that city up. But that's the way it goes. I mean, that's just, huh? All right, you guys got it? All right, any questions on short sales? Estate sales, I'll go quick. Property owner dies. Okay, estate sales. This is when a property owner dies, okay? And it creates an estate. Now, the person dies one of two ways. You either die testate or intestate. Yeah?
I'm sorry.
What'd I do?
You're like the person dies one of two ways.
Sorry.
Okay, Charlie.
That's funny. Hope you caught that, Charlie. That's good. Yeah, that's funny. I meant from a legal standpoint, they either die testate or intestate, or they get knifed by their wife. Oh, that's good. You guys got me punch drunk now. I haven't eaten lunch. All right. Testate means they die with a will, which means their estate is handled by whatever the will says. Intestate is where they die without a will. And so a local jurisdiction defines on how that's going to be dealt with. Now, if you die intestate, the way it works is up, up, down, out. Okay? So let's say right now, if I died with all these assets, not a will, I go up to my parents. My parents are still alive. And then my wife. First of all, my wife gets some things based upon the titling of my assets. But then if I had nothing substantiated, then my parents would get it down, then it would go to my kids, and then it would go out. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. So it's up, down, out, intestate. That's how you remember that. Okay? It's pretty important for you guys to know that. Now, sometimes, most times, a testate, an intestate sale will require a court approval. Okay? And so that could take some time. And so that's what my deal example is going to show. All right? You guys understand that? How do you find estate sales? Most are listed in the MLS with the realtor, but I would avoid this. Just because anytime it gets into the MLS, the whole world has seen it. A good bet is the estate attorneys. Get on their list, tell them you're a cash buyer, but try and meet as many of these guys as possible. They're not really going to show up to meetups because they don't have time for that kind of thing. So kind of get out there, understand who these guys are. They're busy too, but try and get a list of estate attorneys. You can search your local courthouse. I think my example has a list of heirs. Yeah, I think I show that. Okay, I show that. List of heirs is a good way to do it because the only time a list of heirs is filed in the courthouse steps, and I got an example of a list of heirs, is when somebody dies, they have real property to convey. So you'll see this thing called a list of heirs filing at the courthouse steps. An obituary search is a way to do it too. I'm not a proponent of that. It's another way to do it. You can buy probate leads. This will be one of the only times that I suggest to buy leads from a list source. USProbateleads.com is a good way. Buy those leads. I wouldn't buy leads anywhere else on anything else because they're usually outdated. These leads are sometimes outdated too. But if you learn how to find out these things real time by doing the list of heirs search or affidavit of heirs, that's probably the best way to do it. And I'll show you an example.
Can I ask real quick for the leads that you buy? Do they charge you per address? Do they do them in bulk?
Yeah, you do in bulk.
Okay.
Do in bulk. 25, 30 cents a lead.
Okay.
So 100 leads. Yeah. It's not bad. But then you got to figure out a way to, as we know, figure out a way to market to them.
Right.
You got to put them in your list. You got to do some marketing campaigns.
You got to beat your competition there too.
Yeah, you got to beat your competition. Kind of like we did on that one deal on Dominion, right? You know, the one on.
Cemetery, you get a list.
So that's the only time I'm going to say buy leads. That's an example of an obituary. This person, Judith Height, died. I'm going to show you what her list of heirs look like. She survived by Christopher Park, David Park. It's important because of my next chart, just for you guys to remember those names, okay? Because then what happens is there's this thing called a list of heirs filing. This happens to be in Prince William Court, right? And so here's an issue. Remember Christopher Park, Donald Park was part of the obituary. So these are the two people where the house is going to convey. Here's where it gets to be a little bit more complicated. On the right-hand side, the son's age, adult. This son died. So now we have to figure out who died first. Obviously, for him to be on here, I'm assuming he might have died. If he died first, then he really shouldn't be on here. But if he died after she died, then his estate has to be probated. So this house can take a long time to figure it out. You guys got that? You understand that? Okay, but ignore that. What I'm trying to get you guys to understand is what a list of heirs filing looks like. That's the important thing that comes out of this. Okay? And so here's a deal example one that we did a while ago. It was actually Brandywine in Montclair. Believe it or not, I found it via, and I'll get into this in a second, I found it via Prince William County tax lien. That's how I got the property on my radar to begin with. I went ahead and posted a brochure to the door. It had been vacant for 2 years, black mold everywhere. The roof was in disrepair. What happened is the guy that was called the PR of the estate, the personal representative of the estate, he actually took the brochure off the house and he gave me a call. Okay, but remember though, I got this house because it was a Prince William County tax lien house. What happened? Well, the guy died, and just like I know all of us do, we fill out that form from our mortgage company that says, I want this death on benefit insurance that I'm going to pay for, that nobody pays for. Nobody gets that insurance, that life insurance, mortgage, life insurance. Nobody does that. In this case, this guy did it. So what happened was, he died. The insurance paid off his mortgage. House is now unencumbered from a mortgage. House sat there for 2 or 3 years. The estate was convoluted because it was bequeathed to a minor. Oh boy, we need a guardian ad litem to represent that person to sell a house. Oh boy, an ex-wife who died. Uh-oh, now I got another estate I have to deal with, and another adult child. So basically, this was very complicated. Meanwhile, this mold box is sitting there for another year, getting black mold, roof was leaking, and we ended up buying it. But we had to buy it, and it took us 1 year through a series of court approvals, and the house was in disrepair. And so we ended up buying it, but it took a year. But it happened to be an estate sale, even though I got the lead because Prince William County was actually going to sell the house at the courthouse steps because the property taxes weren't being paid, because his loan was a escrow loan, PITI, and the mortgage company was paying the taxes. Another deal that we recently bought, this was 2023, and we sold it in, actually this year, 2024. This was brought to us by an EXP agent, a very investor-friendly agent. In this particular case, the owner died with a will. Okay, it was in Alexandria, and he came to us, and the kids grew up in the house. I think there were three siblings who got the house, but then there was also a granddaughter that got the house too. So we're dealing with 3 siblings who are adults and a grandchild who I thought was an adult. Well, this particular person was under the age of 18. So we put the house under contract in May of 2023. We finally took us 5 months to purchase it because one of the grandchildren, she was under 18. She was 16. So when you're a minor and you go to sell a house, you have to have an attorney represent your interests. It's called a guardian ad litem. So we had to hire an attorney, represent her, and then we had to put appraisals through court. We had to put pictures through court, what it looked like. There's an ARV appraisal, there's an as-is appraisal. So luckily for us, our contract was within range and the court approved the sale. The house was a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath house, 1955 built. We converted to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, $425 purchase. We sold it for $695 and a $75,000 renovation. So that's the number. I think it was 4031, some place I got I think Ed made me put the X's in there, I don't know. The lawyer of the group.
Charlie, real quick, I'm just going to assume that this, obviously the numbers make sense to you, because from the under contract to purchase to sell, I guess my question is like, was that worth it for you?
Yeah, because if you guys know what happened in Fairfax County, but we were lucky on this case. We're under contract 2023, right, for 425. The market jumped 7 to 10% within that 5-month period. So we were lucky in this case. We got a market ride. We got an extra 7.5% because my out sale at 695. When I bought this at 425, my number on it was about 625 to 640. And so because luckily got a gain, right? Because that's icing on top, right? We bought right to begin with at 425. And so luckily the market went up, so I got icing on the cake. But you can never count on a future value when you're buying something. It's gotta be present day. Strategies: understand the process to transfer estate properties, understand how it works. That's why you need a good title company to do it, Titan Title. Build a relationship with estate attorneys, build a relationship with investor-friendly agents. Not so much. I go through obituaries. I'm not a kind of guy that does that. I would rather do this. Look up your list of heir records. It's either called list of heirs, affidavit of heirs, right? One property I got coming up, I'll show you kind of what we did about it. I kind of did a dicey thing. Not dicey, but I did it on purpose. I'll tell you what I did. Skip trace the heirs, right? That's them.com, IDI Core, whatever you use to skip trace people. Be sensitive to the fact that someone died. And buy probate leads. Okay, so those are good strategies. Tax lien properties is the next topic. Any questions real quick? Timing? What time? 55. I'm not done. Do you want me to go, how long? Another 30 minutes? You guys tell me. Huh? Cool. So the way a tax lien property works is that we have to pay property taxes. Don't care what jurisdiction you're in. This is all jurisdiction specific. So what happens is in Maryland and DC, when you stop paying your property taxes, they actually auction off these lien instruments called tax lien certificates. And the jurisdictions pay out an interest rate on those certificates. In Virginia doesn't do that. Virginia is a tax lien property state. What they do is in each jurisdiction, depending upon how long you are late on taxes, property taxes, they'll take between 3 or 5 years of late property taxes, and then they'll actually auction your property off at the courthouse steps. Okay? Why is this important for you guys? Because you guys are looking for distressed assets. You want to use these tax liens or these properties that are late on taxes to add it to your marketing lists. These are distressed assets. It's not a mortgage, it's taxes. So they're not paying them for whatever reason. And a lot of times, properties that are late on taxes are usually properties that are owned free and clear. So keep that in mind. Like I said, some jurisdictions create a tax lien and sell it to the public. That's what we're doing in DC. We are buying the actual tax lien certificates, and I'll go through that process in a second on how we get ownership. Tax liens, it's great. They sold to investors. Owner can pay all the taxes current to redeem the property and end their suit. What happens then is when the owner brings the taxes current, in DC or Maryland, if you own the tax lien certificate, you get your return from DC government. DC is 18%, PG County I think is 19.5%, Baltimore City, which is awesome, it's 21%. But you gotta know the underlying asset compared to the tax lien, because sometimes the tax liens are bigger than what the asset's worth, and so you don't want to buy it. So eventually the property will go back to the city. All right, so this is a good way to get distressed assets. Now in Virginia, the counties can sell the properties for the payment of delinquent real estate taxes. I should have also put a hyphen in there that says cities. Alexandria City, I don't know about Falls Church City, I'll find that out, but I know Alexandria City is a jurisdiction. So any jurisdictions that have the city around it, they can do it too. But cities and counties. Some sales are judicial, non-judicial. Judicial means court approval. This is a good website for finding Virginia, taxva.com. That has all the counties in there. So that's a good site. List is a gold mine for possible purchases. So like in DC today, there are 2,200 properties being auctioned off in a tax lien certificate. Don't you think those 2,200 properties would make a nice list? Oh, by the way, it's published. Oh, do you also know in DC that all the vacant properties are published? Blighted properties are published. So these are good lists for you guys, okay? Here's DC. DC has 3 levels of properties on how they tax properties. There's a normal rate, a vacant rate, and a blighted rate, and they all substantially go up. $10 per 100 on blighteds, that's a lot. So you gotta know that. DC sells the tax liens to the general public. If the liens do not sell at auction, then the ones not sold will be sold over the counter on a first come, first served basis. So add the 2,200 that don't sell today, probably 150 will get through the cracks. So come October, November, they'll have a first come, first serve, and you can pick them up at par, which is good. we'll be the first in line because I hire a 24-hour line setter to sit at that DC tax office so that we can get the pick of the litter. Here's the website for DC, and the list is a gold mine for possible purchases. City of Baltimore, I kind of did the same thing. The only reason why I did Baltimore is because 21%. So if you want to get in that game, but again, that's Baltimore. Here's a deal example. I've got 2 deal examples. I got one current and one later. We bought Blaine property, 3322 Blaine Street. It was in Lily Ponds. I don't know if you guys know where Lily Ponds is, right off of 295. We purchased the tax lien for $32,000. This is where you guys are going to get excited. It was a 2015-16 tax lien. 6 months later, approximately, we filed what's called a quiet title lawsuit because the property owner did not pay us back our $32,000. It took us about a little less than a year. We obtained order granting title. Guess how much money I'm into this property for right now? $32,500. I got title for that property for $32,000. Must see TV, right? That's midnight TV, right? That we watch every night. This is real life TV. We did have to bring taxes current to get the actual deed. So we had to spend another $35,000. So at this case, I'm in there for about $67,000. The renovation was $200,000. I'd sold the property for $415,000. Made almost $200,000. I guess we'll be able to eat dinner tonight. All right. Here's a current one that we're doing right now as we speak. 904 Division Avenue. So what I'm telling you guys, this isn't the way. We buy tax liens for the 18% interest return. That's why we buy them. We sometimes are lucky to get the property. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is that you use the tax liens, whether it's in Virginia, Maryland, or DC, as a way to add on to your financially distressed list to go after these properties. Okay, so the one that we're working on now, I even got pictures on it. Deanwood, I don't know if you guys know it, Ward 7, Ward 8, my favorite place. 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's a very small row home. Row home's a townhouse, 810 over 405, okay? What we did is we converted to a 4-bedroom, 2-bath property. I'm in there for about $56,000. The renovation was actually $190. I put in $200 because Sam didn't get back to me the number. Tell Sam he didn't give me the number. The number's about $190. So I'm in there for, I don't know, $250. Right now, it's on the market at $449,900. I might sell it at $390. Prices are coming down. I'm in a crime area. This is the pictures. These are the before pictures. And this is what it looks like today. Yeah.
It took about 3 years?
No. What took 3 years? Yeah. Yep. Purchased it on, October 2021. Yeah, about 3 years. Yeah, because you have to own the tax lien for 6-7 months before you can put it in court on the quiet title lawsuit. Remember, this is different. This isn't a foreclosure. This is a quiet title lawsuit that goes to a judge. Everybody gets served, all the owners, they show up to court, they have a long time to pay the taxes back. If they don't get paid back, then we win the order. Sometimes that does take a year or two to get it, yeah. But we're in there for such a good
So in this case, they did pay the taxes back?
No, we got the property, we own the property now.
Well, how about the one prior, where the $30,000 comes out twice? In the previous?
Okay, oh yeah, I good catch. I needed to get the number. There's one point missing on this property. I have to bring some taxes current to get that deed. I didn't know what the number was. So this line here should be down here. So I'm in it for 56 plus another 30 because I had to bring the taxes current for 3 years. Yes. So 86 plus 190. What is that? 270 or something like that. Yeah.
What does the profit margin actually look like after all the holding costs? Because you're holding this for years.
Yeah, I'm just holding this that I bought all cash. And I don't own the property, so it's zero. Right, we own it all cash.
What are your month-to-month expenses for 3 years then at that point?
Right.
I don't own the property.
So you don't own the property, so who's responsible for it at that time?
No,
Who's responsible for it?
the owner. The owner still owns it. It's vacant. Yeah, we know it's vacant. Hmm?
So, but they're in Cleveland or something. So then let's say like the county says your grass is gross. you're gonna be fined here
They put
$2,000.
vegetation, they put vegetation liens
Right.
on it.
So the guy in Cleveland is the one who's responsible for that, not you?
That's right. I don't own it.
Even 3 years later, with like,
Nope.
no,
He loses it though.
okay,
He's done. It's over. Now it's over.
that's fascinating.
At this point in time, it's over. Remember though, I own this all cash, so I have no holding costs at this point. My holding costs technically don't start until I got the deed and I paid the other $30,000.
So once you get the deed, then obviously you want to go and clean it up
Oh,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then obviously you're on the hook for it.
Yeah, but this is what it looked like.
Yeah, okay.
How they pay that 18% for you owning
Huh?
pay like once a year, the 18%?
No.
How they pay?
They don't pay, I'm sorry. They don't pay this back until the homeowner redeems it. So the homeowner would have to pay 56,803 back plus 18%, depending upon, and then we get the full amount back. We're holding this thing. So it's not like it's a loan where you're getting monthly payments. No. This is a lump sum game, but it's an 18% lump sum game. Yeah.
So if the owner does not pay you back, then you don't get that 18%, right? You just like,
He gets
instead you get the property. For the 5 years.
They missing it.
He got it. No, he gets it. He's smart. He gets it. But we call that so in all actuality, the 18, you know what we call the 18%? We call the 18% the booby prize. That's not a bad booby prize. At the end of the day, we want the property. And so the way we do these things is that we focus on the owner. We want to go after estate properties. We want to go after LLC properties when we buy the tax liens because we want to shrink the playing field so that our end game by getting the property, we get the property. So we swing things in our favor. I'm being a bully. I'm being a bully again, huh?
So if you buy the 56 of the tax lien in 2021, you're telling me if the owner redeems, like if they just pay the tax off, that's going to be 18% of that goes to you? That's your movie prize?
Yeah, so let's say for simplicity's sake, 10/14/2021, right? They brought it current 10/14/2023, right? They brought it current. So I get 5683 times about 20%, whatever that is, $11,000, right? So I get $11,000 times 2, 22,000 plus 56. Yeah. So I get back $78,000.
Okay. So when they satisfy their tax problems, whatever, you bought it, whatever, it's been there for 6 months, whatever the case is, they can redeem it at one point, in which case then you would get your money back plus your 18%. That's delightful.
Yes, the booby prize.
That's a win-win, honestly.
It's the booby prize.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
No, this is a good, this is a great country. What can I say? This is a great country. Okay, strategies. Understand the local laws of your jurisdiction. Understand how to acquire the data. Most are available via websites, right? Each jurisdiction is different, so understand your jurisdiction. Download a CRM tool, market to them. Bid at auctions to buy the tax lien certificates. Like I said, we're there today. His dad, actually, is Charlie's dad. Charlie's dad's there today. Submit a quiet title lawsuit to get title. Be careful, some tax liens can be more than the property values, kind of like in Baltimore. Don't touch those guys. But again, these are good lists to market to the owner so that y'all can buy the house. And so when y'all buy the house from the owner, then I get paid back my property taxes because that's part of closing. Yeah? I'm gonna skip through this real quick. Divorce, guardianship. We kind of covered the guardian ad litem with the minor, but these are other family events. Divorces, build relationships with investor-friendly agents. I got to cover this really. I need to cover this. This thing called the hidden market. This is another important strategy on distressed assets. What you guys don't know is everything is for sale. Everything. Every bit of real estate is for sale. I'm going to give you $2 million. You going to give me your house? Yep. All right. They said a little bit more. I already got him to a price. I don't know what that price is, but I know it's a little bit more than $2 million. I might get him to agree to sell. His house ain't on the market. So what you have to understand is the housing market, the hidden market is called the housing market with no for sale signs and where the owner does not realize it's for sale. See, he didn't realize his house was for sale. I just didn't pay him enough because he's not a distressed home seller. I didn't pay him.
My wife would take that in a heartbeat.
See? His wife would take it. He might get talked into it because you know how it is. At the home, the wife is. That means you're going to take that's that's exactly right. Okay. So that's what it is. Okay, remember, keep this in mind. Remember, that's what it is. Acquire properties with no for sale signs, no advertising expense, and no competition, right? Basically, it's driving for dollars to the blighted. I'm going to cover the Dominion example here in a second, where we got a good one. Search neighborhoods with higher than average defaults. So there's certain older neighborhoods where houses are getting foreclosed on. Those are your targeted neighborhoods. Usually maybe 1985s and earlier, the older established neighborhoods. Speak with neighbors to get an idea of properties that might sell soon. Create a list, do a tax record search, do a land record search on these properties, add them to your list and market to them. Find the owners. You're going to look for vacants and look for blighteds. You guys are going to find out it's called driving for dollars as well. But build your list and market to these guys. Okay? Here's our current, matter of fact, this is our current deal example. You guys might have seen this because we tried to sell this in the MLS without doing the entire renovation on it. 3011 Dominion Drive. If you guys showed up to Grid Manassas like I know you guys did, this is the property. This is the story on the property that I talked about, talking to the seller, figuring out who the only heir of the property was. Student purchased it, and basically his wife found a couple properties at the end of the court that were vacant. We added it to the list. We skip traced the owner. The one particular house, somebody died. He was 82 years old. He died over a year ago intestate. We skip traced the property. He had no will. We skipped out to trace the property. This is the second property where I almost got a gun pulled out on me. We skip traced it. We figured out that his only living heir was a sister that lived in Alexandria, Virginia. I said, Keith, I did IDI core on her. I did that'sthem.com. I said, Keith, I know this is the only heir. Here's the email addresses. Here's the phone number. Call her tonight. I don't want you, it's a student. I'm trying to teach him how to do it. He calls her up. Her name was Rose. Nicest lady in the world at this, now she is. He calls up Rose. Rose told him to get the hell off his phone and never call her again. Keith calls me up, says, take her off your list. You got the wrong person. She told me not to call her again. I said, Keith, you know what we're going to do? What are you doing tomorrow at 1 o'clock? We're showing up to Rose's house, and we're going to talk to Rose because I know she's the only heir. I know. So we show up. It's raining out, right? So there's a covered porch, right? Raining, covered porch. I'm on the covered porch, doors here. Keith standing out in the rain. First time he'd ever been to a house like this, ever. He's got, oh, thank God he had a hat on. He's getting poured on. Knock on the door, ta, 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 ta. Rose answers the door. Rose must have said 40 fuck yous to me in 15 minutes. She was so mad. She's like, who are you? How did you find me? How did you do this? She had all these questions for me, right? I couldn't get a word in edgewise. She was literally screaming at me, trying to understand why I'm at her house. She knew why. She's screaming, right? Eventually she goes, I'm gonna get a gun. I'm gonna get a gun. I'm getting a gun. Now, what I didn't realize, she's a single elderly lady, 75 years old, living by herself. The house is immaculate. I know I got the right person. And then Keith introduced herself, and she knew right away who Keith was because she knew Keith had called her the night before. She wasn't expecting to see me, right? So then all of a sudden, I'm talking to her. She's screaming at me, just blasting me, right? I've never been cussed out so many times in one person, right? So I'm trying to tell her who I am and how I found her and how I know all this stuff. And then finally she goes, I'm gonna go get a gun, but she keeps screaming at me. She calms down, calms down, calms down. We finally get to a good, trusted relationship, right? And so then I explained to her, finally, I explained to her who I was and what I know. I know that she's the only living heir and that the property's in this guy's estate name, right? Remember, it's a vacant house driving for dollars. Then she turns around to get some paperwork. I said, Rose, I said, you're not going to get a gun, are you? I said, if you really want us to leave, we're going to leave right now, because she told me, get the F off my property, get the F off my property. But she's still talking to me and screaming at me. So I figured, okay, she's got more to say. So eventually she goes, no, I'm turning around to get a folder. And then she says, do you guys want to come in? I said, yeah, let's come in. We'll come in. So we sit at, where do we sit? Kitchen table. So we sit and we talk. I was only supposed to be there from 1 to 2. Well, it ended up being 1 to 4 because Rose is telling me all the stories about her brother who lived in this blighted house and all of his problems and all the help that she had to give him in his last year or two of dying. And she was really, really scared that because he died, the house was in the name of an estate, that she thought that if we conveyed the house into her name, that she would be responsible for her brother's hospital bills. And so I had to explain to Rose how once the house is in an estate, that she has no responsibility for it. It never gets titled in her name, but she can convey it on behalf of the state. Then once we calmed her down and she understood that, she then says, I said, well, how much do you want for the house? She goes, well, this house, and I'll show you in a minute, this house is in terrible condition. It's only worth the land that it sits on. It's all right. Sounds good to me. Land was about $125,000. It's all right. Sounds good. She goes, oh, by the way, the $125,000, she had a lot of pride. I don't want anything to do with that money. She goes, I want you to donate it to the charity of your choice. So I said to her, I said, look, I said, you're doing nice. And because Keith, my friend Keith Honore, his son had recently died. He got hit by a train. And so Keith was trying to establish a scholarship fund in Kyle Honore's name. And that's what we're going to end up doing. But that's how we eventually bridged the gap, is we bridged the gap with her because we knew she was charitable. And so that's how she bridged the gap. So she then said to me, she goes, I'm going to give you the $125,000 to donate to Clear Sky Sports Angels on my behalf. At that point, though, I drew the line. I said, no, Rose, we're not doing that. I said, we'll go ahead and buy it for $125,000. I said, but you are going to think about what charity you want to donate this money to. Because she had a lot of pride. And so then what ended up happening is, oh, the house is a shithole, and I'll show you pictures of it in a minute. So then we came back a day or two later, because I had to make this as white glove as possible. Because remember, in the county land records, we didn't have a list of heirs filing. Because Rose didn't want anybody to know, number one, where she lived, and number two, that she was the only heir living. She didn't want anyone to know that. So we had to do a white glove service. So the next day I came back, presented her with the contract, $125,000, left her house, said, okay, Rose, have a lawyer look at it. I said, just let me know. And then, oh, by the way, we start talking. I'm there for another 2 hours. She goes to me, she goes, you know what? I thought about what you said. I said, we're going to donate the $125,000 to an animal shelter right down the street. I said, that sounds good. Let's do it. So then eventually, we get this thing ready to close. I'd already done a title search on it. I knew the encumbrances. I knew everything about it. Title company took another week or two to finally do the title search and get this thing set up for closing. But there was one very, very important thing that had to happen before she could legally convey the house. It was this thing called an affidavit of heirs. Because nobody knew that she was the only living heir but me, we had to get 2 different third-party people to sign off on an affidavit of heirs saying that they knew that she was the only living heir. Well, I was the only one that knew it, me and my assistant Heather and Keith. So we had to get the list of heirs sent. So what we did is we got the list of heirs filed, submitted. I took it to the courthouse steps. I paid the $50 and I had to provide the list of heirs that was notarized, and I actually had to provide an actual death certificate to the probate office. Not a copy, but an actual. Luckily, Rose had 3 copies. And so I gave it to her. The list of heirs got on file. My friends looked it up. Next day we closed. We bought the house. Because I didn't want that list of heirs. I didn't want anybody else finding out about it until after we bought it. So I did it, bam, bam, so nobody would know. Again, real-time data, right? That came off of a hidden market purchase, a vacant house that was blighted. That's how he found it, one of my students. That's what it looks like. Oh, by the way, there were grenades in this house. We were warned. There were grenades and guns in this house loaded. One of our contractors stepped on a gun, it went off. They took the grenades out of the house. The guy made bullets in his house. He had bullet presses. He had other things. He had a whole bunch of stuff. And then Keith actually got ownership to a Toyota Highlander because the car was paid off. The car was paid off, no liens. It's an abandoned vehicle with the DMV. He now owned the car, $25,000 car. Plus he got a house for $125,000. But that's what he got. Okay, then what we tried to do is we got such a cheap price. What we did is, I thought I had another set of pictures in here. Where are they? Uh-oh. You know what I did? I actually took the before pictures and I didn't copy the right set of pictures in there. I have after pictures in there, but all the after pictures are showing is that the house is cleaned out, the trees are removed in the front and the back for the most part, and we tried to wholesale it, right? So we bought it for $125. It needed like $275,000 renovation. House was worth $645. Where are the numbers? Yeah, $300,000 renovation is worth about $640. We're in there for $125. So instead of doing that, the $300,000 renovation, we tried to sell it for like $350 or something like that. Do a wholesale deal, let somebody else do the renovation. We didn't do it. So now we're starting the renovation tomorrow. Sam, we starting it tomorrow? Got it? That's hidden market.
Now you're going to sell it on the MLS one day.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do the $300,000 renovation as we speak. Yeah, we tried to. We wanted to wholesale it. Wholesale means wholesale to retail. Clean it out because we are in there such a cheap price that we just wanted to make a quick, $200,000 and move on, or $150,000 and move on. But it didn't work out to our advantage. So we're going to go ahead and renovate it. Student's first renovation. This probably isn't the first. This probably shouldn't be his first renovation. A $300,000 renovation. Oh my God. So we're pretty much doing that for him. Here are your strategies. Target older neighborhoods where some houses are in disrepair. Target neighborhoods where there's a lot of foreclosure, short sale activity going on. Create your driving plan based on this knowledge. Look for evaded and blighteds. Talk to the neighbors. A lot of times, nosy neighbors, ask the neighbor about the house that you're at, because a lot of times nosy neighbors will tell you about other houses in the neighborhood that you can put on your list. Well, John and Mary are getting divorced. They're not going through a good time. Such and such just lost their mom. There's a lot of life-changing events that nosy neighbors want to talk about. So these are properties to add to your hidden market list. Also, talk to local code enforcers. Yeah, think we're good at that, right? Alexandria City is famous for some of those guys because the local code enforcers know the vacants and blighteds, and the county governments want to get these houses the hell out of their jurisdiction. They want to get them renovated, fixed up, and sold. Nobody wants blighted houses in their jurisdiction, trust me. New purchasing algorithms, I'll go quick. Instead of buying the houses, go to prereo.com, buy the notes, and then foreclose. Take the house back. That's another good strategy to do. Pre-REO, like I said, that's just another website of doing this. There's another group called Foundation Commercial Real Estate Funding that what they're doing is they're actually auctioning off houses on their website of loans that they know are coming to foreclosure, right? They'll take the house to foreclosure, but since you won the auction on their website, once it goes to foreclosure, they then sell you the house. That's another good strategy. This is Foundation, CRREF.com. So there's two different types of distressed asset buying models that have recently come out within the last year. Okay. Section 10, create deal flow without chasing. I'll go over this real quick. So the distressed asset piece, we talked about chasing the deals, right? Chasing all these deals. Now we're going to start having deals come to us. That's the majority of our deals, right? Remember, the one in Fairfax came to me from my wholesaler, one-off wholesaler. Summit, Taconic came to me from an EXP agent. So really for us, the one on Dominion I just showed you, we are doing a 50-50 split with a student. That was a hidden market deal that came my way. So we're set up, guys, that the only reason why we even do fix and flips anymore is because I got people bringing me deals. But we've cultivated that over time. How do you do it? Bandit signs, they still work. If you guys see bandit signs on the road, call them. Call them. Call every single bandit sign. You guys know what a bandit sign is? We buy houses all cash. It's got a phone number on there. You see those signs? Yeah, call the number. Call them up. Here's what you do. Hey, this is Charlie Einsmann, Clear Sky Properties. I see that, I saw your sign. I'm interested in buying houses. If you're a wholesaler, I'm a cash buyer. I can close in a week or less. Add me to your cash buyer list. 9 times out of 10, the guys with those bandit signs are wholesalers. So call every call every bandit sign you see. Introduce yourself. ABM. Always be marketing. Click through advertising on Craigslist. Chip Oaks. I got Chip Oaks because my Heather submits an ad for us on Craigslist every hour. takes it off every hour. We buy houses all cash. It goes to my landing page, which I'll show you in a minute. Chip Oaks, one-off wholesaler, calls me up. He tried to sell a house to another cash buyer. I guess the deal fell through. He goes, you buy houses, right? I said, yeah, where's the address? He goes, I want such and such for this house. Will you buy it? Of course, what? Chip Oaks, we did a wholesale deal on it. But that's how we're getting all our deals are coming to us. Postcards are most effective, right? We still mail to out-of-state owners. I have a pre-foreclosure database, 16 years worth. I still religiously mail to those guys. I have my son's number on there because I want Corey to take all the leads. I don't want to deal with it, but he's fumbling, but that's all good. Expired withdrawn listings, but 6 to 9 months ago, those are good sources. Realtor network, investor-friendly agents, those are hard to come by, but if you get one, you got to treat them right. If you're going to do a fix and flip, you better give them a listing. Personal footprint, right? Church members, accountants, attorneys, wholesaler lists, social media guys. You guys are into social media, right? Facebook ads. Just figure that out. Create a landing page. We got one, and then update your site engine optimization, SEO. So I'll show you some here in a minute what we got. That's an example of my abandoned sign. That was a property in Washington, D.C. on Polk Street. We got 1 or 2 deals off this sign alone. It's a commercial 3 foot by 5 foot sign that we're allowed to do in D.C. I can't put this on a public right away, but I can certainly put it on a property that we own, 3 feet by 5 feet. And D.C. can't say nothing. So people drive by this house, they'll see the fact that we're renovating it, and look at that. That got a couple deals. That's an example of our landing page. I think it's soldin2days.com. Soldin2days.com, not the number 2, but TWO. That's been our landing page forever. And so when we mail our postcards, you'll see soldin2days.com on there. You'll see it on there, right? Yellow cards work pretty good for us. And so these are examples. Mailers do matter. These are examples of some of our stuff. We like the yellow ones the best. That's just an example of some other stuff that we send out. My number's in green or my number's in red. I don't know why the hell Sam's number's not on here. How's my number on here? I don't know how this works. Sam, we need to put Sam's number on here. Maybe we'll convert more of these cards. But, you know, mailers, they do okay. They're not great. They're not the greatest. You know, you got to do it over and over and over and over and over again. We bought one house on a mailer because the guy says to me, he goes, he had an N unit, I would never forget this house, he has an N unit townhouse in Centerville. And he calls me up, and he lives in California. He came in through our website, lead, make me an offer. So I made him an offer through our landing page. And then we got to talking on the phone. I said, well, why did you contact me to buy your house? He goes, I figured you sent me 12 or 14 postcards. I figured if you could afford to mail me every 6 weeks, you could afford to buy my house. And that's why he called me, because we had the most postcards. I'm not kidding. Yeah. Past deal flow, why am I showing you this chart? Because there's many ways to buy these things. At one point in time, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14, we had 14 fix and flips that we were working on at one time. And these are the different ways that I got these houses. A bank purchase. The one on Ocala came from, do you remember what bank? Agricultural Federal Credit Union. Small. That's where we got this one. Evansdale was a pre-foreclosure. I actually knew the owner. That wasn't a fun conversation. Polk Street came from a wholesaler, one-off wholesaler. Meridian Drive was a short sale. Tarpon Lane pre-foreclosure. Fernleaf was a realtor referral. Sarajevo, another wholesaler. DeVries, realtor wholesaler. He was a realtor. Instead of acting as a commission agent, he wanted to make an assignment fee. We didn't care. I think he made 30 grand on that one. Sugarwood Lane is Courthouse Steps. That was a foreclosure auction. Prout Street was a CFS's Clear Sky Financial. We had to foreclose on a house. I know it's hard to believe. Foreclosure Bandit sign. 9th Street Northwest was a Bandit sign. That was a Corey sign. Sam, remember that one? Short sale triple header, and then bankownedauction.com. I'm showing you this because it's not one size fits all. You have to, ABM, always be marketing. You have to have many ways to find these guys because it is not easy. What do we do? Many ways to find distressed assets. I talked about distressed asset types, how to identify, actual deal examples that we've done, and then create your own marketplace. This is the assets to chase. We talked about this. I kind of glossed over this situation a little bit just to kind of speed this thing up. Ways to create deal flows without chasing. We talked about that. Key takeaways, many ways to find distressed assets. Create your own marketplace. Everybody in here is competition, right? Understand the auction process, not only for the foreclosures at the courthouse steps, but also the REO auction process. Understand all that. Liquidity is important and speed to close. I think that's about it. This is what we offer for students. You guys feel free and welcome to sign up. 12-month access. We have a weekly training call with myself, Sam, or Ed. You have a private one-on-one call with me, myself, and Ed. Ed is a litigation attorney. He's the best attorney I've ever been around. He is an incredible real estate attorney. He knows the deal. If you can get access to him, trust me, just having access to him is worth it. We've got a bunch of courses. I'll show you guys that in a second. This is basically our courses right now. We have fundamentals of real estate investing, financial literacy, how to find money, and this distressed asset course is there. However, there's a big difference in the distressed asset course that we teach than what I taught today. We teach you how to become the source of your data, okay? And then we got 2 more we just launched. We just launched a wholesaling course, and we just launched a fix and flip course. So we got 6 courses out there right now. This slide's a little dated. And then in 2 months, we're gonna launch the passive income course. And that's where we're gonna talk more in detail about how to become a hard money lender. We're gonna talk about tax lien certificate investing, getting your 21% return. We're gonna talk about how to invest in a pooled mortgage fund. We're gonna talk about building your residential rental portfolio. We're gonna talk about buying commercial assets. We're gonna talk about syndications, how to invest in a syndication, real estate investment trust. So we're gonna start talking about all these different kinds of passive income investments. That will be probably our last course, unless you guys tell us what else you wanna see. But that will get you to the end of our roadmap, which we have books here. Feel free to take some of the stuff. We've got books. You guys are more than welcome to get a book. I'll sign it. I think Sam and Ed has already signed it. And so I just want to thank you guys for coming. I'm sorry. What time is it? 1:30. What? 1:30. Hell, that's not bad. I went over a little bit, but you guys stayed content. So I appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for coming. Yep. I hope you got something out of it. Yep. All right.